to just take some note of. Which I didn't know was a feature. I didn't know about a lot of this stuff, because you guys probably knew that. I never was doing moderation on my streams. Werema's been helping out with all of it, and Werema, seriously, thank you for that too. Werema, you've helped out so much with all of this. I know it was like a nightmare when you first came in with all of it too. But things have calmed down so much more over here after all of it. And I do want to thank you a lot for helping out here. It's gonna still, like, be weird on occasion, I'm sure. Things are not gonna fully go away. But at least it seems like people are feeling a bit more comfortable here, too, just being able to talk and chat. It seems like things are slowly calming down. They're probably, like I said, gonna be weird on occasion. The one I've been warning people about, get ready for it, guys. When we launch the new stream thing that we're going to be doing, the one that's like a 2.5 hour long stream that we've been planning on, that will definitely be a weird stream, because I think that's going to be a lot of people hoping for that to be the big opportunity to be weird. Obviously we know about that though, and the thing is, the stream is so disconnected from chat anyways, it's not going to impact it in any way. We're still going to just be doing what we do. But I guess the warning I just want to give preemptively on that one too. Stream chats can get weird. They've been weird over the course of like 5-6 years here. They've always been up and down with weirdness. Werema has at least been doing a good job helping out here, and I don't know. I guess we'll see with that stream. I'm expecting people to be weird about it, but things have been improving over here, and there's even potential for it to maybe just end up being people wanting to watch to actually just watch. We'll see. I'm not going to get too optimistic here, but we are going to be still doing that. I don't know if we're ever going to be able to do a second one. It's going to be based on however this first one does, but I'm not throwing out the idea of doing more. I do want to keep making stuff and posting stuff and doing stuff. I don't want to give up on things. And we got a lot planned, and we got a lot we still want to do here, and we'll see how much of our schedule we can still hit for the rest of this year. We had a lot of stream stuff we wanted to do, a lot of stuff related to game stuff that's been thrown for a loop a bit, but still got stuff on the way here with publishers that we've been talking to as well. We're still putting together some stuff to present to publishers too. We have only partially gotten to work on that this month, not just because of health stuff, but also because we've been trying to finish up the summer stuff. Once we're done with the summer stuff, we're just going to be full-timing all of that. We'll give you guys updates on all that too. But I do want to work in stream stuff more often here. I'd like to do more. There are a lot of video games that are yet to have been played. There are a lot of game magazines that are, you know, maybe just mysterious to people. Maybe they've never even read them before. There's a lot of video game information in general that I think would be fun to put on display here. Or just playing games. Just playing games can be fun. Or just watching stuff. That could be fun too. There's a lot of stuff here that's just fun to do. And that's what I always liked about streaming. It was fun to do for just things like that. For just whatever. Halloween stream last year was a lot of fun for that. Doing stuff like G4ia. It's always been fun just doing random stuff over here on stream, and we do want to do a lot more of that. So I don't know, just stay tuned. I'll give posts, updates when we stream more. We still got that big summer stream coming. We still got the summer resort game on the way. I am working on something off to the side as well, which you guys will know what it is when it's done. And we're looking for publishers, so we got a lot going on all at once right now. We have a pretty packed schedule on our end, but we're going to be trying the best that we can, so just stay tuned. What kind of weird? It varies. The weirdness in streams could just be something as basic as, like, someone just trying to be argumentative in chat, and that's like nothing, whatever. That's standard fare internet. That's what you can expect in like a YouTube comment section, Twitter, anywhere. That's the light end of it. The weirdest end is that sometimes we've even had stuff like, I forget what it was. I was playing a game on stream one time, and at the end of the stream, I had whispers from like 7 different people telling me that some guy was being really creepy in the chat to people, asking them for like weird personal information or information about my end, and then they were individually one by one whispering every single person in the chat. They were trying to bug them about it. Stuff like that. Really creepy, bizarre people sometimes roll through here. It's not like end of the world for my own end. I don't personally care. The reason it was starting to actually be more of a problem is because as of last year, things did get kind of more intense with that. More people came back around, I guess because we did videos again, so more people were paying attention again. Not all of it was obviously bad. Some of it was just people probably being socially awkward. But some of it did get really bizarre. And that's the stuff that I've had people tell me, like, they don't really like coming by these streams just because it doesn't feel comfortable for them to then come by. Julian's streams usually have a much more laid-back environment. In fact, they're a very laid-back environment. I usually don't feel bad at all when he's doing his streams. They feel very comfortable. That's why there's sort of a difference between the two areas. People can be very strange over here sometimes. But Werema has been helping a lot with moderation. If anything's ever too weird over here, just, you guys can, like, just whisper one of us about it. We can look into it. Things have been getting less weird here on stream. Chat has been calming down a lot more. What is it with the stalker problem you guys got? I seriously have no idea. This has been a 6-year window of it now. I'm at the point of I legitimately just don't even care anymore. I'm fine to acknowledge it for what it is. Even if that annoys people, because some people did get really angry that we acknowledged it, but all that tells me is you're probably upset because you're contributing to it and you just don't want someone to point out what's happening. It's been an issue for a very long time. I wanted to think of a lot of reasons as to what it could be, and even talking to Julian, by the end of all of this, he's just kind of said sort of similar. We've come to the same conclusion. Probably wasn't anything. I think it was just being in front of people at all. You're just naturally going to get people being weird. And considering that we're already sort of weird anyways with the stuff that we make, art styles that we have, the things that we're interested in, the games I like are completely bizarre. Julian, he does like furry commissions and everything off to the side. Like, there's lots of stuff that people can easily like try to stir it into a problem and everything. I'm sure there's a lot of areas why people would want to jump in and make problems, but stalking stuff, I don't know why it went as far as it did. It was even weird before any of that anyways, because that's why I was saying, oh, it could be all these different factors. But it was happening before people even knew anything about us. It was happening as early on as just like a month of doing videos on YouTube. People were already being weird about it. And I remember, I think it was only after like 2.5 months that we were doing videos that someone was trying to even like make a map and figure out where we lived and then wanted to like coordinate people showing up at our place. People were extremely weird. And it just seems like that's what communities and audiences tend to do. It's not a thing of, oh, they all do it. No, they don't all do it. It's that fandom can just lead into weird directions, and some people can even have a bizarre thing within themselves where I guess they just latch on to someone. They feel like that hatred, I guess, is just so intense that they can't really, like, lose focus of it even. And I've seen it. I've had, like, old friend circles and everything. Like I said, when I was younger, I was around people that used to use, like, Something Awful and 4chan and everything, too. I knew people who used to use V all the time. I've seen what that can be like, misery cycles like that. It can be different for everybody, but that's why pinpointing what is doing it, I have no clue at this point. I'm sure there's a million different reasons people could probably have. but it's gone for a long time, and that's why on my own end I'm just kind of numb to it now. It's like, oh, yeah, I expect it. If anything, that's kind of all I expect. That's why motivation dropping was partially coming from that, because it's a thing of, oh, right, because since it is always going to be a thing, how much value is there to anything that we actually do then? Is there any value to it? Or is it, for the most part, this is just what people are here for? But we've been realizing, no, there's people who care about things that we want to do here on stream. There's people who want to, like, play the games that we're making and everything, too. There's people who are interested. It's just, there are some really bizarre people out there. What's the worst that's come from it? I mean, that shouldn't even have to be a question. I figured people would know. Maybe, I don't know, enough years have passed now. That'd be great. Oh my god. That's actually a relief, now that I think about it, hearing that as a question. Because last year, people repeatedly wanted to bring up 2016 over and over and over again. That'd be great if people actually aren't familiar now, because it's been long enough and it's not a constant discussion anymore. The worst that happened was that a bunch of people ended up not only putting my old, like, cell phone number out there, they were able to find information about family, and I ended up getting outed as gay to most of my family, and then had really horrible relations, still do with a lot of them, that I essentially got even just disowned by the majority of my family after that for a while. Things slowly came around with a few of them. My mom, I've actually been starting to finally develop a better relationship with, because she had a really horrible accident happen last year that thankfully she came out of just fine. I shouldn't say just fine, but I'm relieved she was okay. I was keeping in contact with her for a while. And after everything that had happened, she told me that she's ended up realizing how it's not worth just getting into conflict all the time. It's not worth making so many problems. It's better to remember the things that, kind of similar to what I've been feeling, try to remember things that you do care about and try to prioritize what really matters as opposed to what doesn't. She has come around on a lot, has actually been talking to me more again. And it's been nice. It's been nice actually feeling like family can be family. But that was the worst thing that probably came off of all of it. We've had a lot of weirdness. Like I said, people were even trying to stage like a big thing to show up at our place. People were mapping it out. It got really creepy, but that, I would say, is still probably the worst one. I was not expecting that one to happen. And usually it's a thing that people want to either, like, disregard or sort of downplay. I'm sure if it's also a situation that people are pretty heavily removed from. I remember Julian talked to me about it even recently, but he said, like, you know, as the years have been going on here, I've kind of been realizing that being gay, I guess, is more of an issue to people than it really should be. Because he had a similar mentality to me. It's a thing of, like, yeah, why does it have to fucking matter? Why does it have to be a big deal? It doesn't even have to be a thing you necessarily have to bring up. Why does it have to be such a major issue for people? But no, as time has gone on, it's just been inevitably showing itself as a problem, whether that feels silly to your own end or not. People have just made that into an issue within itself, too. And that was a big one with a lot of my family. Growing up, even. I remember being like, I think I was 16 at the time, and I was talking to one of my cousins. No, it was I think it was an uncle, but he was bringing up one complaining about, no, whatever, I don't need to get into all of it. The thing that came up, though, as we were talking, he was really drunk, he said, like, oh, you know, I don't have problems with people, though, you know, you're supposed to be, you gotta respect everyone. Except, you know, gay people, though. I don't want them near, like, my family, I don't want them near my kids. As he's saying that to me, I'm age 16, but I already know that about myself, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess you should stop talking to me then. I didn't say anything, but it was a crappy thing hearing that. It's like, wow, So if you knew that aspect about me, you'd basically see me as, like, dead then, huh? It always felt very silly. It always felt like a thing that shouldn't have mattered. But yeah, people have been making it into more and more of an issue as the years have gone on for us as well. It wasn't as big of a deal when we were first doing things online. It really wasn't. But as time has gone on, people have also been weirder about that too. And that's why having a fallout with family like that, if it's unfamiliar to people, if you're not in a position like this, probably doesn't even seem like that big of a deal. But no, it was incredibly awkward. It was a really horrible situation to sort of end up with. Because it's a thing of, sure, even if to you, you can understand the idea of like, well, this shouldn't have to matter. Still, they're doing it. It's still happening anyways. And they're still going to treat it like you're doing something here as well. That you're actively just a problem by existing. It was a really, really bad situation to end up with, and it kind of sucked that specifically people just being weird and trying to be as weird as they could be, that is what ended up creating that as a conflict. I was not expecting it. Nothing as bad as that is really happening, at least. But that was probably the worst thing that ever came from any of this. Sparkle, I'm really sorry about all of that. It sucks. It's really awful that it's a situation. And once again, sure, you can still take the confidence on your own knowing, like, you didn't really do anything. It's just people making problems on their own by doing that. But it's still a horrible feeling, too, especially when it's family, because it's like, these are supposed to be the people that are there. They're related to you. They're connected to you. Supposed to be able to be there for family, and family's supposed to be able to be there for you. And then something as slight as that, just something as small scale as that, is the factor that makes them then decide on, no, you need to be destroyed or, like, pushed out completely. You need to be forgotten about and kicked aside. People can be really awful about it, and it sucks. But, like I said, at least with my own situation, that was so many years back now that at least some of it has calmed down a bit. Yes, it's still a really bad situation with plenty of people, but it's calmed down a little bit. But, once again, it wasn't a thing I would have expected. Of all things, that was the one I guess I wasn't really expecting. The nice thing about the openness, though, is when you're getting to just be there happy with the person that means the most to you, hey, that's great, isn't it? When you actually are there with someone that just means the most to you, you really relate to them, you can just have endless conversations with them, and you really both feel like you understand each other and everything. It's one of the nicest things ever. And that's why even if, sure, in lots of cases things can be an issue for, you know, others and things on the outside, at least having one person that can be that caring and understanding and everything, it really can make up for a lot of it, and it can make things feel much more important, because at least there's one person there that is that important. There is someone that matters that much. I'm glad Julian has been able to help out so much over the years and be there in so many of these situations. And I don't know, this past week too, Julian's been helping out a lot. I've been really happy to have had Julian here during all of this. I was really scared this week with all the sickness and twirling around and not really being able to think or move for the first few days since I was feeling so sick. I guess something to mention, because some people are even bringing up like living around family who can be this way, or being in a state that a lot of people just naturally hold that mentality. We're actually kind of living in a place like that right now. We are in a town that is very heavily like super religious, very stingy. People who already get into conflict with each other constantly. There's like a big meth head community here and everything too. Lots of just aggressive people in general. We've gotten our fair share of dirty looks. We haven't had anything too horrible, at least, like, come from any of it yet, but we've had some uncomfortable situations through it. We don't go out too often, at least. Maybe that's part of the reason that we don't have too many problems. We usually are just indoors working. We don't go out too often. But it is scary sometimes, because you can tell when people want to like make a problem and go as far as they can possibly go with it. It's not even a thing of like some people love conflict. I would say an overwhelming, like, I'm not gonna say a majority, but I would say from what I've witnessed over the years, that's why Julian and I both kind of had that moment of, I guess this is more of a problem to people than we initially thought it was. Because I think we both had that. I think both me and Julian had a similar feeling of, okay, this isn't the thing that really matters. This is a pretty light thing to... Like, if anyone's going to be goofy about it, then okay, poo-poo on them, it doesn't really matter. But then as the years went on, being exposed to more people, having more people exposed to us, talking to more people, seeing so many different mentalities, ending up realizing, no, I guess this is just a pretty big issue for a lot of people, just inherently. It just comes up as a problem for a lot of people. Because the thing that's just such a bummer through it as well is, well, man, that sucks, because if they weren't doing that, boy, would things be happy. Boy, would things be easy and enjoyable, but I guess that's the whole point. They don't want it to be. Like I said, on my own end, it's really nice being able to just relate to somebody so much and having someone around all the time that you really just enjoy being with. It sucks that can't be like a shared happiness thing. That has to be an issue. It has to be like a demand that needs to stop. But thankfully, like, I don't know, talking about this stuff on the stream more, yes, it did also get some initial really, like, strong responses from people. I think it wasn't too surprising to people either that Juliet and I obviously are very supportive of these things, because it's a thing that's relevant to us, and it's a thing that shouldn't have to be such an issue. People should be allowed to have their identity, and people should be allowed to be themselves. If you're allowed to be yourself, there's no reason you should be going out of your way to stop other people from being themselves. Otherwise, why do you deserve that respect then? Why should people respect you if you're going to disrespect everybody else? People would probably be a lot happier if they could understand that kind of thing. Prioritize their own happiness more than anything else. Because if you're unhappy, I feel like that's what you should be doing. You should be figuring out what you need to be happy. And not in terms of what other people need to be doing themselves. What could you be doing? What do you need to prioritize on your own end? What are things that you care about the most? What are subjects and areas that maybe you're not even looking into enough? But those are the things that make you happiest. Sometimes I think just people forget the things that make them happy. I think it's easy to get lost in, like, misery. You always gotta remind yourself every once in a while the things that make you happy, the things that are exciting to you. Slugma, they have here. It is a little bit different here. That's why talking about the weirdness in chat. They have stuck around a lot. It's not fully true. It would be nice if people just walked away. It's not usually as simple as that. But like I said, as time has been going on, at least it does seem like people are starting to understand that and are just moving on. It's a shame that people can't let that go. It's a shame people can't calm down about that kind of thing. But I guess if they want to be angry about a thing. I am sorry to anyone in chat who has been given a hard time for that in the past too. We've noticed a pretty decent share of it. We've seen it plenty over the years and had people reporting stuff to us. We've been taking note of all of it, and at least it does seem to be improving here. So if anyone was scared about that kind of thing here in chat, we're trying to do what we can to make it a little bit better. Like I said, Julian's streams are actually a lot calmer than these streams tend to be. But it seems like with Where Am I helping out so much, it does seem like things are getting a little bit better here too. Hopefully people don't have to feel like as unsafe over here. That said, I need to go to the bathroom, then I'm going to finish reading donations. I think Julian might have woke up, so maybe I'll make him some breakfast. And then I kind of want to just lay for a bit because I am a little bit dizzy. So 1 second, I'll be right back, and then we'll finish up reading donations. Okay, I'm back. Hello, hello? Let me just see where I need to be on this list. I'll read some donations here. Julian is awake, so I'll figure out making him some breakfast once I finish up here. We did watch We're Back like a week ago, I think. Julian was streaming and he was working on the painting for the intro of the new stream thing we're doing. And he's been drawing a bunch of VHS tapes for it. And that was one of the ones I grabbed from was We're Back. And we talked about it because we were like, just want to watch We're Back when we're done streaming. And we did. The movie's short. Really short. What, like an hour and 10 minutes or something? It's really, really, really short. It's a very strange movie, too. I get why it was made. It's because Steven Spielberg and Jurassic Park want to market Jurassic Park to kids, I guess. I mean, there is a shot in front of a theater where Jurassic Park is playing, and a bunch of kids are cheering for the dinosaurs. Yeah, really odd movie. Really odd movie. Not just really odd, it's very odd. Space Bakery, yes, and it happens in all of like an instant. And by the way, his brother does not even want to opt to help him. He's actually pretty ready to just let him die instantaneously. In fact, with how he acts and how weird he is, like his plan to go back in time and kidnap dinosaurs and then just fling them out into the middle of New York and not even help them out or anything, because he does. He just kicks them out. He gives them parachutes, but he just like kicks them out. He doesn't really say much to them. He's just like, oh, kids like dinosaurs, so I thought I'd make a machine to go back in time and kidnap dinosaurs and drop them in New York. You figure it out. It's not like his brother is any better. It seems like both of them are pretty bad. But yeah, it's a really weird moment. Obviously, they want to have their dark, creepy moment of the villain character getting killed off, except the way that it happens, it makes his brother seem even worse. Because as he's leaving, too, no real reaction from him. Very cold way of just kind of abandoning him to let him die. He even has a bit of an expression on him as if, like, he's kind of taking pleasure in it. But the evil guy, he's scared and he's nervous and he's shocked even that he's so ready to leave instantaneously to just let him die. They kind of goofed up there. I don't think you're supposed to think like both of them are weird and uncomfortable, but they are. It's a really strange movie, like I said. And that too, I am suspicious. I'm very suspicious of the little alien in that movie. He's designed to look like a cereal mascot, obviously, because he gives them cereal to eat. But it makes it feel like they were hoping for like a tie-in cereal to go with the movie or something. It does feel that way. Really, really strange movie. And I'm sure it was mostly made for like marketing and PR purposes. Really marketing purposes, not really PR. Seems like just pure marketing was the idea. Thank you, Tara, for $5. Here's a little something for sparing some time to entertain us. The stream is hours of fun and very cute. Jeff would give it a 6. Jeff would give it a 6. It was too much like Barney and Bobby's World. Sorry, Jeff. We'll try to do better next time, Jeff. I'm sorry. I will come into the next stream dressed as the Postal Dude, and I'll be armed with as many guns as possible. We will improve these streams, don't worry, Jeff. I'll get that 9 out of 10 from you. Video Games, the Ultimate Gaming Magazine, will give this stream a 9 out of 10. The funny thing is, yeah, when I did read his name was Jeff, I was naturally thinking Jeff Keighley in my head each time. I was like, no, it's obviously not Jeff Keighley. But if it was back during this time, I could have even believed it. If you find some early stuff from Jeff Keighley, he would just kind of adhere to the current mentality and would do stuff like that. It's why the Spike TV VGAs, hey, he was one of the leads on all of that, and they were completely shameless about how they handled that award show. I could see him doing reviews like that. I don't think he would swear, but I could see him saying that it's Barney the Dinosaur and comparing it to Bobby's World if it was back at the time. Thank you, Glogbob, not Globgo. Thank you for $5. It's always fun to look at old game reviews. Yeah, isn't it? Really interesting. And once again, it doesn't feel as bad as it once did. I will say there was a window where it did feel pretty bleak because the gaming audience knew a lot of the games that it wanted to play, and constantly reviewers were there to sort of stand in the way and go, no, you might think you like these games, but you really don't. You might think you're having fun, but you're not. You're not liking that game. There was a lot of that for such a long time that now that people don't take most of that seriously anymore, nobody really pays attention to game reviews in the same kind of way. Like I said, the video game awards still exist. We still got some of that, like, weird game reviewer mentality stuff still slipping in. AAA industry paying, you know... I don't want to say... because everyone always wants to use the term game journalist. I don't want to use that as a term. I don't know what you would really refer to it as, though. Because when I say that as a term there, I'm mostly just applying it to, like, the power structure that existed prior of what gaming press was. Maybe press is even a better way of putting it, because it is kind of like TMZ. It's not necessarily like this is, you know, well-researched in a lot of cases. You've seen articles, you've seen, like, what these reviews even were in old magazines. People weren't trying too hard. People have even, when I've been screen capping them and posting them to Twitter, people have been saying, these just read like YouTube comments. Yeah, they do. That's what a lot of game reviews were. That's what they felt like. And sometimes very deliberately, too. I remember back that 2010s, early 2010s was a very big era for, I'm going to intentionally write a really bad review just to get people angry because, hey, ad revenue, A+, it does get you it. It's not as bleak now. It's not as depressing to look back upon because we have overcome a lot of that. We don't deal with as much of it. It's still sort of there, like I said. We still have some components. We still have some lasting elements from that still around that do want to ensure that you don't talk about games that you're actually enjoying. Please just buy the AAA games that paid us, but it's been evened out a little bit more. And people don't take it as seriously. And even with the video game awards, do people still watch it? Yeah. Are a lot of them watching it because they kind of hate watching it with friends? Sure. Is that bad because they're also technically supporting it? Yeah, but I get why people want to come together and just sort of laugh at it. That's why I'd say at least give it some time. If you're going to hop in when they're live doing it, you are giving them, like, support. It's why the thing with the Minions movie, too, I was having that discussion with people. If people legitimately like Minions, just say it. That's fine. I just don't like the idea of, like, ironically paying money to a thing that makes you upset. That doesn't make any sense to me. Why support something that makes you mad? That's weird. But some people like the Video Game Awards, I guess. Most people seem to just watch because they're hoping something they care about gets announced, and then it doesn't, and then they go, well, next year it'll happen, and then it doesn't, and then they go, well, next year it'll happen, and then it doesn't. But they keep holding out that hope. Maybe they'll see one or two things that pop up that are kind of neat, but they probably could have looked up anywhere else without having to sit through like a half hour of ads for Google Stadia. It's not a thing that really necessarily needs to be around. Like I said, it's one of the last components of that side of the industry. But it does seem like most people do understand it's kind of goofy. Even people who are into it seem to partially understand that about it. And that's why I'm saying there's been improvement. If someone was to say, I hate the video game awards in 2022, I think a lot of people could easily understand that and go, yeah, that makes sense. You would probably have some people going, I like it. But you'd probably still have them understanding, yeah, but if there's nothing there interesting to you, oh yeah, you're going to be bored out of your mind. The awards don't really matter. It's just a big commercial. I mean, that's what award shows are. But I can't think of too many other things. G4 potentially could have brought back a lot of this too. If like, reading this magazine here on stream, you're having a laugh and you're like, man, thank God we don't do that again. Well, G4 was contributing to a lot of that back in the day. They're actually a big part of why things got bad for a while. That's why I knew G4. If anyone was wondering why I was very quick to say something, that's kind of why. I don't want stuff to fall into that again. I don't want Comcast spending billions of dollars to just be a gigantic ad for AAA industry, and then, hey, let's go shut down everybody else, and let's go tell a bunch of people that everything that you like is actually bad. Please just buy the one thing over and over again. I don't want that to happen. I like that video games are opening up a little bit, and I like that some genres are even coming back. Genres that get forcibly phased out by this stuff. I'm glad that things are starting to kind of open up a bit more with games. We're starting to see styles of games that we weren't seeing for a long time. We're getting some things slowly coming back. And that's nice. That's a good thing. You're allowed to enjoy a video game. You're allowed to have fun. Even if a reviewer told you that your game looks like Barney the dinosaur and it's no good. Or someone told you that it's outdated, so because the game is fast-paced and it's arcade-styled, it's now bad and you're not allowed to like it. You're allowed to like games. You're allowed to like games. And that was probably the major flaw of a lot of these reviews. Inevitably, people are just gonna, I think, get tired of that. When over and over again they keep telling you that the things that you like, you're wrong for liking them. Yeah, I think inevitably you're just gonna get bored of that and go, whatever. You say that every time. I'm gonna go have fun now. Hey, isn't that crazy with Klonoa? There's been a lot of feeling out for that kind of stuff lately, too. A lot of older properties are slowly doing some feels again to see if people are interested. And I'm not kidding when I say it. Part of the reason we saw the death of some of these things, if you look back to old like game articles and like discussions and everything, I'm gonna say like the end of the PS2 Xbox era, heading all the way to probably like midpoint of PS4 Xbox One Wii U era, really was heavily driven around just, we need to stomp these things out completely. These reviews need to be driven around, these games need to go, these things are outdated, this is the style of game that is favored, and everything needs to follow what the new thing always is. You're not allowed to have your own unique thing. You're not allowed to have a gameplay style and you keep consistent with that. You need to keep adhering to whatever the newest thing is, and if you're not falling in line, then you're out of here. That's what a lot of it was. It was a weird, like, power thing going on. It wasn't really about reviewing games, it was just kind of maintaining a weird balance. I keep saying weird, because it felt weird. It's really bizarre to do that when something like games should just be exciting and fun. Yeah, 3D platformers were one of the big ones. 3D platformers were one of the biggest examples of these are outdated, you're not allowed to like these. Reviews were doing it over and over and over again, even on games that were good. Just saying, this has to die. Don't make these anymore. Stop. It's what I was mentioning earlier. It's why shooters changed pretty heavily. new direction for shooters happened. They're becoming more cinematic and everything, so there's more emphasis towards stop making the other ones. You need to be this, otherwise, no, you can't be around. We're not going to acknowledge you. It happened pretty frequently. A big part of it, too, is, I would say the when would I say it started? Because I was going to say, like, 2010s, but it might have even technically started a little bit before that, but no, I'd say like 2010s for the most part. Not in, maybe not the most part. I'd really have to figure out when in the 2010s, I guess, like beginning and end point for this, but cinematic games, I think were also becoming such a big priority because, hey, it's easy for reviewers. If you're only given a game to review for about 3 hours, well, here's a game that has a high skill ceiling and it takes probably a few days to learn. Oops. You're not going to be able to really review that in a few hours, are you? Here's a game that holds your hand the entire way through and just shows you everything, and you don't really have to play it, and it's mostly just you taking in the storyline and you not being too involved as an actual player. Hey, that's perfect for a reviewer. I only have a few hours. I'm guaranteed to finish this. That's absolutely perfect. It's partially why even that was being favored a bit. Challenge was considered a bad thing to some reviewers. I remember GameSpot actually had that listed as like a con. It was a negative. That they would actually do that in some reviews and say, the game has too high of a skill ceiling or it's too challenging, therefore bad. What if you like a challenge? Why is that inherently bad? Okay, this reviewer doesn't like it, but does that need to now drop the overall score for this because of that? And now a bunch of other people are doing it. Oh, great. You guys are now saying that this game is worse than it actually is because you all collectively decided that that is a bad thing. When that's completely subjective, and most players would probably actually be happy about that kind of thing if they were already interested in this game. Things got muddied really hard by that kind of discussion, and that's why an arbitrary number doesn't really do a lot. But it did a great job steering purchases for a while, and when there wasn't a lot of access to game information and this was all being closed off by making deals with the developers themselves, well, yeah, it made sense why there was so much control happening at the time. And that's why YouTube was an exciting thing. It's why Twitch was too. It's why gaming content did open up so much. You don't need to have it that way. It doesn't have to be people who are not really interested or just seeing it as kind of a paycheck. You can actually have people who care about it. You can have people who are passionate. Hell, you want a game review that's in depth, you'll have people that are willing to do 2-hour-long essays about games. Passion came in. There wasn't a lot of it for a while. There were people who were, bleeding with passion that it's like, no, these games are fun, come on. And then got to just be kicked aside and spit on over and over again by, the passive-aggressive reviews. But yeah, once again, we've overcome a lot of that. We've gotten past a lot of that. There's still remnants. There's still bits of it. That's what, AAA gaming and, a lot of the press around that still sort of is. But we've overcome a lot of that. And it is nice. It is nice for that. And once again, I said it earlier, recommend games to friends. If you find anything, if you find a small-scale indie game that you're not even sure people will like it, but you had a good time with it, just tell people about it. Just share it. Who knows? You might interest somebody. You might have a friend who just picks it up and goes, hey, actually, yeah, that was pretty fun. I didn't think I would like it, but thanks for the recommendation. People need to be talking about games that they enjoy more anyways. People should be sharing this stuff. It's a good thing to be excited for things. It's nice to actually just be excited for things and to share that excitement with others. Rather than, I guess, caring more about setting up an image for yourself in terms of hey, there's only one game I like, mister. All this stuff, bad. These genres need to die, but there's one game that I love. Heavy Rain. And this is the future of video games, everybody. Every game needs to be Heavy Rain. That happened for a bit. We even had a window of that. And you can enjoy Heavy Rain. I know people do. I enjoy it for the wrong reasons. I just think it's really entertaining because of how goofy it is, but there was even that for a bit. There were people having discussions about this is the future of games. All narrative, no gameplay. This is what we gotta be doing. It's really gone up and down, and that's why, once again, it's just important to share things. Just tell people about games that you like. And I think if it's a more frank discussion that way, it's not this long-winded thing of, like, why you need to feel bad for liking a game, or why you were actually wrong for having fun. When it's just a discussion as simple as, oh yeah, I thought this level was really cool, I like the art design, I think these visuals are really stylized in a way that they stand out against kind of like anything else really releasing at the time. As long as you just list off the things that you're happy about and excited about, I mean, I think that makes enough sense then. It just means that more people get to be excited. Share more games. Don't feel bad about it. It's good that people can enjoy things. Everything's subjective anyways. Not everything, but when it comes to like game opinions and everything. A game being bad is just a perspective. Not everyone's gonna feel the same way. You don't have to feel bad if people might dislike the game you like. You may as well just tell people that you enjoy the thing you do, because there's hope then that other people can find it. Maybe they'll enjoy it as well. The QuickTime fail compilation from Heavy Rain is funny. It's specifically the one where he chases the guy into the grocery store and that he slips on the... It's because the scene is already goofy. Even if you don't make all the mistakes, think about what that scene is. Someone's carrying cardboard boxes and are just walking by, and then you can awkwardly trip over them and knock all of them over. For no reason, he like flings himself over the side of like an aisle at one point. There's chickens being flung at him that he starts like picking up and grabbing and then slipping all over. And yeah, if you don't make mistakes, oh sure, he's not slipping all over them, but a guy is throwing chickens at you. There's a guy struggling with empty cardboard boxes. It's like having the two movers with a pane of glass going by. You may as well have every single goofy cliche happening. It's completely wet, like banana peels. They should have gone with just everything, but yeah, it's a really goofy sequence. Whether you make the mistakes or not, it's already a really goofy sequence. And then it's made even better if you miss everything, because all the animations are really wacky. It doesn't end the scene either if you make mistakes. You can keep going. So you're just a burden to everybody in that grocery store. You're just bothering everybody and messing everything up and looking like a moron the whole time. And then as he runs out of the store, he gets hit by 2 cars in the middle of the road. It's why I was saying, I can't even say like I dislike Heavy Rain. I can't take it seriously. But to me, it's so funny that I'm amused by it. I am entertained by it. And when the game bugs out, that's when it's at like its absolute peak. I love how goofy it is as an experience. It's kind of like why I could appreciate some older games. People have asked stuff like, how could you play a game like Illbleed? How can I not? Genuinely, I love like a lot of the designs and like visual elements in Illbleed. Genuinely, there's a lot of stuff I do love there. The gameplay is not a thing I like about it, but it's so goofy. There's so much to love and adore about it. It's got such a unique like personality and style and flavor and everything. Of course I'm into it. I love it. It's great. Apparently it inspired Danganronpa. I didn't know that. Creator of the series said that Illbleed was an inspiration for it. I don't really see the similarities. The high schoolers getting killed, I guess, but hey, it even inspired something like that. There are plenty of bad, like just overall bad games I can still be like amused by. I've played some of them on stream before, but yeah, Heavy Rain, that's what it kind of is to me, that it's like, I'm not genuinely invested in any of this, but the voice acting, the way that the characters are animated, what these sequences even are sometimes, it's so goofy that I can't help but laugh at it, and sort of have fun with it at points just for that. It's just so ridiculous that I'm amused by it, I'm entertained by it. No, it's not the intended, like, vision, but hey, I'll watch goofy, like, blocky movies for similar. That might be a problem for some people, that's like, you're not liking it the right way, but I'm liking it. I think that's also a thing to keep in mind as well. That's why all the stuff with cringe that people keep talking about, you can also just admit if you like something. I know a lot of people want to, like, preface it that way and be like, oh, but it's embarrassing and it's bad. Oh, everybody's embarrassed. Everyone's insecure. You're not being new and original by being number 200 billion in line for being insecure. Everybody is. In fact, the past couple of years have been like the height of insecurity. Don't worry, everybody's insecure. If anything, just enjoy things. Just enjoy the things you enjoy. You should be happy if you enjoy something. And if it's something weird or goofy, or you even understand it's something that's like bad and yet it's so endearing and captivating to you, just call that a guilty pleasure. It doesn't have to be cringe. It could just be something you enjoy. You legitimately enjoy it. Who is it, Grimure, during that cutscene? Is it the guy with the boxes? It might be the guy with the chickens. I'm trying to remember who it is. But during that scene, the guy's just walking by, and if you make the mistake, what was his name? Norman Jaden, was that his name? The agent. He starts just grabbing things out of the guy's hand on his own and is like wrestling with them for absolutely no reason. That, yeah, you're just being an inconvenience now. You're just running up to people and grabbing things out of their arms and like pushing people over. You're just acting like a dunderhead, and you're just making things into a mess deliberately. It's really funny to watch. It's what the game should have been. You should be embarrassed by liking Kingdom Hearts, though, Kappa face. You should be embarrassed for typing a Kappa face. And by the way, if you took that comment seriously, well, that's why I'm not taking the Kingdom Hearts comment serious. No, people can have fun with Kingdom Hearts. There's stuff I like about Kingdom Hearts. Is it completely ridiculous? Yeah, absolutely. That's why it's also super entertaining. That's why I can consistently laugh at so many of the cutscenes and have, like, a good time with it. If Kingdom Hearts wasn't as goofy as it was, I probably wouldn't be as interested in it. And there is some Kingdom Hearts stuff that can be interesting. We were checking out Chain of Memories a while back, and I was actually surprised. Game Boy Advance Chain of Memories, not actually that bad plot-wise. Writing-wise, it's probably the most tolerable of, like, the entire series. It works for what it is just fine. It takes itself as seriously as it needs to, and it even has some interesting character arcs here and there. I thought the Riku clone stuff was actually really interesting. I was surprised by it. I didn't expect the series to actually do a thing like that. Probably one of the only plot lines in the entire series where following it, I was like, oh shit, that was actually, like, interesting. That was actually an interesting character. And the end of this character is actually kind of sad, even. Yeah, it's not all bad. You can find good things. Even in a thing that you think is overall terrible, you probably can still find good things you like about it. Is Kingdom Hearts really goofy? Oh yeah. Is it incredibly awkward? Yeah, absolutely. That's also why I think it's really entertaining. That's why I think it's really funny. I kind of wouldn't want it any other way, to be honest, with some of those games. Some of them, yes, I would. Kingdom Hearts 3, I was pretty let down. I was hoping for goofier. I wanted wackier. But, no, I think there's some fun to be had in Kingdom Hearts. I can understand why people are into it. Are people going to be awkward nerds about it? Sure, they're going to be awkward nerds about everything. Everything. Like Star Trek nerds fighting with Star Wars nerds. You have a guy decked out in, like, all of his Fallout gear, going, pathetic. Kingdom Hearts role players, am I right? Hang on, let me pull up my Pip-Boy now. I appear to have a conference call with my guild. It's like, this is awkward, don't worry. Nerds need to understand that, like, nerd culture needs to understand that too. Stop trying to think that you're, like, the height of it, that you're somehow the cool part. It makes me think of the Teen Girl Squad, that's just the comment that they make at one point, that they go, hee hee, we're cool. No, you're not. Just understand that. Have fun with the things you enjoy. Everybody's awkward, everybody's weird. But their fringe case is weirder than my fringe case. Don't worry, they probably think that your fringe case is weirder than their fringe case. It's all weird. It's all awkward nerd culture at the end of the day. Have fun with the things you enjoy. I will say that Kingdom Hearts 3 bored me for the most part playing it. I was playing it on the hardest, by the way. The ride mechanic was such a terrible idea because every fight just turns into you doing those and nothing is hard. I had to stop using them because it made the game too easy. And even then, still, it was really watered down. But yes, the Monsters Inc. scene, that is actually legitimately a funny moment because it doesn't even feel like a Kingdom Hearts scene. It's not paced like one. It feels like just genuinely a funny moment that would have been in a movie like that. Where they keep throwing the doors into more doors over and over again. That scene is funny. I mean, that's true too. It's true, Werma. You can like something and also acknowledge the flaws. I know that's also a shocking thing to people. That's why, once again, I was just talking about Illbleed. Here, you want me to complain about Illbleed? Boy, can I complain about Illbleed. Hey, what a cool idea with the horror monitor. The fact that you don't start with it, why? Why do you not start with it? Why do you have to find it? Why is it hidden in really bad spots, by the way, that if you're a new player, you're absolutely not going to find it? So you need to just wander around, probably die a couple of times in some of the stages and load your save file to find it? Illbleed's great about you just need to know where everything is. It's wonderful at doing that. You need to know where everything is. You're not playing through that game blind. You're not. You're gonna have a horrible time if you play through that game blind. You need to know where things are. And then, hey, the jumps. They have a huge delay put on them because, you know, it's more realistic that way. So what if we had a really awkward platforming segment that if you touch the ground, it wastes about 3 minutes of your time and makes you have to do the whole thing over again? Oh, but that's not enough. What if we have a jump rope minigame that borderline kills you if you mess up during it and it uses the delayed jump controls? There is so much in there in terms of just like horrible, horrible decision making. The stuff that's fun in Illbleed is it does feel like you're going through a haunted house. It does. Horror monitor was not a bad idea. I like the idea of looking for little things and going, that looks suspicious. That probably is a thing that's going to hurt me. So you mark it, you walk up to it, and yeah, it was. Good job. You're getting better at understanding haunted houses. Hey, there's a really sharp turn coming up. I wonder if a thing's going to jump out from behind that corner. It does feel like a virtual haunted house. They did a good job with that. But even that system is pretty flawed. You run out of adrenaline very easily. Combat is terrible in that game. There's so much wrong with Illbleed when it comes to its actual gameplay. Its camera system is really awkward. They have a lot of different camera angles, but none of them work too well. There's a lot of stuff I could complain about when it comes to Illbleed. And despite saying all that, hey, I love it, and I can look past almost all of it. I'm really entertained by Illbleed that I don't care that it's incredibly awkward and it's got all these problems. They sort of add to the experience in their own way anyways. Yeah, they can be really frustrating, they can be really annoying, and sure, they kept out new players. I think that's the biggest problem. Hard to recommend a game when it's going to do something like that. You're going to have to tell people you might need a guide, but there's so much I love. The art style is fantastic. It's actually a really nice looking Dreamcast game. Those textures are so high quality, what they put into them. They have unique, like, UIs for almost everything. I was surprised by that too, that there are just so many different like visual styles going on in it. All the menus look so different from one another. There's so much personality put into that game. I remember the Killer Man levels specifically when there's TV static on screen all of a sudden, and then it cuts to this weird screen telling you like who done it, and then they give you a list of all the possible suspects. It's got its own unique design and everything. It's using its own unique font. Everything in that game just gets to feel so standout and unique between stages too. It's a great idea for a game. It's a really good idea for a game. It's just the gameplay needed to be fixed. That was the problem. Everything in there is like a really solid idea. It just needed good gameplay to complement it. And if there was no Bleed 2, which they wanted to do, they might have actually been able to resolve that. Didn't get to happen, which is too bad, because the creator ended up dying, which is really too bad. But yeah, I love that game. And I can admit all the faults of it. I know what's wrong with it. I know a ton is wrong with it. But even if I can acknowledge those things, I think the things that I care about easily outweigh them to me. I can still enjoy a game even if it has bad gameplay if I'm really charmed by everything else. And I think people can easily fall into that. You can love something and still understand like its shortcomings or where you'd like to see it to do a bit better, because by also acknowledging those aspects, it's you wanting it to do better. You're not necessarily being negative because you just want to shit on it. Oh, plenty of people do that. Yes. But if it's something you like and you can also acknowledge those shortcomings, you're doing that because you're probably doing it out of love even. It's because you want to do a little bit better. You want to see more of it. In some cases, when I'm disappointed by like a game or a movie or something, it's not even because it's like I want to be. In fact, I'd say in most cases, it's not because I want to be. It's because I'd like to see it to do better. I want to be able to see it improve. I'd want to be able to like it. Some people are absolutely in a position that they just hate it because they hate it. But yeah, if you can acknowledge stuff like that, it doesn't all even have to be bad, even though it's supposed to be negative, that you're acknowledging the negatives. It goes towards a positive. Oh my god, my throat. 1 sec, I need water. I can say that about Sonic Adventure. I probably wouldn't defend 2 as much. I liked 2 when it came out, obviously. I still have my Dreamcast copy of it. I bought it when it came out. And I did prefer 2 when it came out. But I remember as years went on and going back to Sonic Adventure 1 over and over again, I ended up realizing, no, I think I like the first one more because the movement is more opened up in Sonic Adventure 1, as buggy as it is, which I would blame the camera for a lot of it. Camera and also just weird interactions due to the physics. There's a lot of bugs. It's a really buggy game. Sonic Adventure 2 is especially buggy, which is weird to say, because people would probably think, no, that's the more polished one, isn't it? Not necessarily. It actually kind of depends, because Sonic Adventure 2, a lot of the stages aren't you playing as Sonic or Shadow. A lot of them are you playing as characters that are like in vehicles or doing, other side things. Knuckles can run around really fast, but it doesn't really get in the way. If anything, it just kind of helps him find things faster. It's not really impacting him in any way. You don't have to worry too much about like running off a cliff in those stages anyhow. In fact, does Knuckles even have a stage with pits in it? I don't think he does he? He might. Pumpkin Hill has a giant pit, but if you touch it, it just levitates him. It doesn't kill him. But Sonic Adventure 1, I had a lot of fun playing it as Sonic specifically because he has physics in that game more than he does in Sonic Adventure 2. Sonic Adventure 2 is a little more on rails for Sonic. And by the end of the game, Sonic's level design starts turning into more gimmicky situations than taking advantage of his speed. In Sonic Adventure 1, it's not focused around the Lightspeed Dash a lot either. Lightspeed Dash in 2 is just, here's a ring trail, press B. That's the expectation. Oh, did you press it too fast? Okay, you're gonna grab one ring and then fling yourself off a cliff. Oops. Sonic Adventure 1 has the Lightspeed Dash, and the way you do it makes it kind of useless. So it's never really required, and it doesn't get integrated into level designs the same sort of way. It's not as big of a deal. So levels kind of feel more Sonic-y in Sonic Adventure 1. In fact, in general, it kind of feels more like a Sonic game than Adventure 2. Soundtrack sounds a lot more like Sonic music because a lot of it is just 3D Blast music that got remixed. Or unused music from 3D Blast getting finally used in a game. Enemy designs. There's a lot of enemies in Sonic Adventure 1 compared to 2. 2 only has a handful of enemies. It got, like, the gun robots, like the mechs and the little floating ones. They have those, like, chaos enemies. I'm trying to think of what else. There's more than that, I'm pretty sure. But those are kind of the main enemies. There's only, like, 4 or 5 enemies, really, in that game. I guess that's not true. There's the ghosts. There's ghosts in there. There's a little bit more than just that, but for the most part, not a lot of enemies, and some of them don't feel very Sonic. But Sonic Adventure 1, the designs of the enemies feel like standard Sonic enemies. They feel like badniks. They feel like proper, Sonic enemies. It feels more like a Sonic game than Sonic Adventure 2 does. And like I said, Sonic was fun to play through as. That game is super buggy, and oh my god, with Sonic, you can break that game wide open, but it's fun to do. Any slight slope in that game, if you were standing on any little bit of an inclination, if you do a spin dash and then jump, you can fling yourself really high into the air and just super jump off like everything in that game. You can run on ceilings because they tried a little bit with the physics engine in there. It doesn't work great. Sometimes you can also just be standing on a ceiling. But there's some fun stuff in there. There's some stuff to explore. There's a lot of different gameplay styles. I know people hate most of the gameplay styles, but it does have a lot of content as well. And the only reason most of those gameplay styles get to be frustrating is because they're required if you want the good ending. I wouldn't say Sonic Adventure is a solid game. It's not. There's a lot of problems, especially with how old it is at this point and just how much it shows its age. But I can have some fun with it. Adventure 2 frustrates me a lot more than Adventure 1. The thing that I think really makes Adventure 2 for me, the soundtrack is really good. I do like the soundtrack in 2. But the ranking system. It is fun to do those. I do like doing them, even if it's bullshit on some of the challenge missions, because it's up to the game either working or not. I still have fun doing them. I just like ranking systems in games, though. I've always had a soft spot for that. That's why House of the Dead, I've been playing it, like, every other morning, trying to get a little bit better at it. I did it this morning, guys! Even though I was a bit dizzy this morning, I positioned myself and everything. Like I said, I've been trying to play it every morning, and then this week was kind of a week of me not playing it, just because I was so dizzy. But this morning I played it. What was my score? I have to open it again. This is going to mean absolutely nothing to anybody, because it's not. I know genuinely being excited about games in this kind of way is not going to mean anything to anyone. Yeah, there it is. 91,000 points I ended up getting, which not obviously like top of the top or anything, but I'm starting to get close. The world record I think is like 111,000 points or something. Technically, they didn't design the game with 100,000 points in mind. In House of the Dead 1, if your score exceeds 100,000 points, the high score list breaks your score and doesn't display it properly. It hides a couple of digits. That at least lets you know it's somebody whose score exceeded 100,000, but yeah, it doesn't show up right. I've been trying to see if I can get to 100,000 points. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close. I didn't think I was going to hit 90,000. I was actually wondering if I was going to hit it. I kept getting runs where I was hitting around like 85,000, like 82,000, but I hit 91,000 this morning, so I might actually start being able to get around 100,000. I might start getting up there. I've been figuring out a lot about it as a game and everything, too, and it's been fun. It's actually been a really good choice, I think, of a game to just wake up with, because it's straightforward, it's easy to jump into, really satisfying to play, and it's only about 15 minutes long. If you know what you're doing, it's very short. So it's a really easy game to just keep playing over and over again. And like I said, I like score attack games. I know that they're not for most people, but I do get satisfaction out of like personal growth. It's why I play fighting games too. So I've been having a lot of fun playing it. And like I said, that's why Sonic Adventure 2, its ranking system. Oh, are a lot of those challenges just bullshit? Absolutely. Hard mode versions of some of those stages are a joke. I think of the Tails ones where they will just spawn enemies directly on top of you, and there's nothing you could have done about it. And oops, there goes all your rings. I hope you didn't want a ring bonus. They do a lot of stuff to be unfair in that game. But not even that. I don't care so much about those. The ones I hate the ones where it's something like, hey, finish this stage in a really short time limit. You have to get a really, really good time to ensure that you get a good grade on it. Like find the lost Chow. And then one of the steps is use like Mystic Melody and now do a Lightspeed dash. I remember it's the stage with Sonic. It's that one pyramid level. I remember getting stuck on one of them over and over and over again. It was the lost Chow because you have to do Mystic Melody into a Lightspeed dash, I think into another Lightspeed dash, and you have to do it really fast if you want an A. Well, Sonic Adventure 2 is horrible about the Lightspeed dash because you have to be facing the ring path for at least like half a second before pressing B, otherwise the game has no idea what the path is. You grab one ring and then you fall short and die. And that's what kept happening. I kept getting flung into different directions over and over again because I kept going too fast. So I tried to be very slow to do it, and then something else would go wrong. And then everything's mapped to the B button, so maybe instead of a Lightspeed dash, maybe the game thinks you wanted to bounce instead, and oops, now you're in a pit. There's a lot of problems with Sonic Adventure 2. And I would say the score attack stuff is actually what brings out the absolute worst of it. If you're playing through the game casually, you're probably not going to run into a lot of that. That's why when I hear people still complain about it, it's like, oh, but in a casual playthrough, I don't think you're going to run into as much of that. You will run into problems for sure. It's a buggy game, a super buggy game. But you're really going to see the worst of it if you're going for all the emblems, which I've done it twice now. And we do have a save file, I think, for Battle on the GameCube where I was starting another run to do it, and I stopped because I was getting too annoyed. But I've done it a few times, too. The Chow Garden stuff is the worst part of it. That's the stuff that's gonna, like, take forever to do. Although, I liked the Chow Garden when I was younger. I had fun with it. I always wondered why Sega never just did a Chow Garden game. I feel like it would have been really popular. But yeah, with both of those games, I can get something out of each of them. I think Sonic Heroes is the one I can't get too much out of. I did buy that game as a kid. I got it. I was excited for it. And then after playing through it, I was just sort of disappointed. It just didn't stand out too much. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't like the worst it could have been. In fact, in some ways, it's a little more stable than Adventure 2's engine. In some ways, it's way more broken, too. But I think that's when I stopped caring about Sonic for a while, was Heroes and like Sonic Battle. I think that's when I fell out of it. I was already sort of getting there with Adventure 2, but that was what was like sealing the deal. What about Shadow with a gun? I mean, people can make fun of it as much as they want to. Seriously, think about this for a second. If Shadow the Hedgehog actually played well and had like a fun physics engine to take advantage of, and you were shooting gigantic, oversized like rocket launchers at enemies while just skidding around and grinding on rails and doing flips and everything. Which, by the way, imagine like utilizing that for movement even. Imagine Shadow like rocket jumping and everything. Yeah, maybe that game wouldn't have been so bad. If it was just the goofiest thing ever, it probably would have been insanely entertaining to play. If the gameplay was actually good, who cares how goofy the story is? If anything, I'd be like laughing the whole way through and loving it. I wouldn't care. It sucks that it just doesn't play well. If it played well, I would probably be like in hysterics playing it. I would love like every minute of it. It's just because it doesn't play well. I wouldn't care. If that game actually played decently, if any, like I said, I would be in love with it just because of how goofy that is. A Sonic game with guns, and hey, it's actually fun to play, and look, you can use the guns for movement and everything too. Look how ridiculous this is. Yeah, I'd probably have a fun time with it. Devil May Cry team should make a new Shadow game. I mean, that's what I'm saying too. Imagine getting like Platinum to do it or something. You probably could have made it a fun game. It's just that they didn't. You know, I also just kind of joked when I said that. Imagine a Platinum made Shadow the Hedgehog. Platinum was under Sega. That's actually not, like, a thing that was unreasonable. That could have happened. They're not anymore. Nintendo's now funding Platinum, but they were under Sega back at the time. That wasn't actually, like, out of the realm of possibility. I'm surprised they never had a Sonic beat 'em up. They had Sonic the Fighters, they had a fighting game, which people will say is bad, but it's not. It's actually kind of a neat little game. It's weird. People just want to say it's bad because it's Sonic. It's just what people do. People just love to do that with that franchise, because you can get ad revenue. But yeah, Sonic the Fighters isn't that bad. It's not amazing or anything, but if people are familiar with like 3D Sega fighters from that era, yeah, it's an okay one. It's not that bad. If you're unfamiliar with Sega 3D fighters, maybe that's why it's going to be so bizarre to you. And it does have its weird mechanics. That barrier system is pretty weird. But it's got some interesting stuff going with it too. It's not that bad of a game. I've had fun playing it. Specifically, I remember having a friend come over and we were both just trying to learn it all mechanically to see what you could sort of get out of it. And yeah, I remember we were having a lot of fun once we figured out the mechanics and everything. Sidestepping each other and trying to like bait situations. It felt like a fighting game. It's not one of the best, but I think it's actually really charming too. The soundtrack is actually pretty good in Sonic the Fighters. I like how those models look a lot. I love how they're rendered. Yes, I know they look really blocky, even back at the time they did, but hey, it's Sega hardware, baby. We're rendering with quads. We're not... Triangles? What are those? I don't know what those are. We're not using those. I did like how it looked. And I love how, like, everyone has squash and stretch and everything. All the animations are so cartoony. It's a fun game. It's a fun little game. But even that, I'd say that's one of the biggest things to keep in mind, I guess, too. As we've been reading these, reviews in this magazine, and how we've read game magazines on stream before, and how you'll see a long train of bullshit going for a while before suddenly mentalities change around. You'll have a lot of people saying, man, this game is bad for this specific thing, and then you get 10 years of people saying that before eventually they go, okay, maybe we were being kind of unfair, or maybe that was sort of a baseless accusation that everyone was making at the time. People do that all the time. And that goes for, like, anything. People frequently will just see something, get fearful, or get angry, and just kind of have that, like, mentality of, no, everything's a problem. Everything's wrong. In fact, how much deeper does this go? How much worse does this get? People are great at setting up like false expectations in that kind of way, and then a narrative just gets created for a while that everyone stays around with. God Hand's a good example of that one. Everyone thinks of the IGN review of that, giving it a 3 out of 10, and hey, it's okay. Don't worry, other critics weren't any kinder to it at the time. They were all being really unfair to it. And then about a decade passes, and now IGN even did like a re-review of it, where still they're not being too genuine or fair to it, but they've acknowledged that that review that they initially did sucked. A little bit too late. Clover got sunk a little bit too late, but still, that it's like, hey, it's acknowledged. Everyone was wrong about it at the time. People got caught up in bullshit, and they went with it for a long time, and they had to realize later the mistake they made and just admit to it. Happens frequently, happens often. It's why also, if you are in a position of enjoying a game and you're seeing a lot of people saying a thing about it that you know isn't even necessarily true, you don't have to be pulled down by that. Just understand that because a lot of people say it, it doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Especially on an area that's subjective, like a game being good or bad. It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Mentalities come and go all the time. People do that all the time as well, that it's like, hey, a bunch of people are saying it, so this is just cemented now. It's how discussion tends to go. Don't let that drag you down necessarily either. And it's why even a game that you enjoy, that you're afraid to admit you enjoy, give it some time. People might finally break off of that and just go, okay, I was just sort of saying it because other people were saying it. Yeah, it's actually not a bad game. It's been happening more and more often that a lot of older titles that people just completely shit all over back at the time, people are coming to terms with it that it wasn't a bad game. And they're understanding that some titles might have even been hidden gems, that people just casting them aside. People could be wrong. That's why, once again, it's important to know the things that you actually care about and you like. Don't let that kind of thing sway you necessarily. If you know that you're enjoying something, and you know you're enjoying something, you know you like it, you know you're having fun. Apple Green, I was sad about Star Fox because I do like a lot of stuff in that game in terms of like the presentation and like some of the dialogue and cutscenes and situations and stuff. There's some fun stuff in there. The control scheme really did drag it down for me because I love Star Fox 64. I love how smooth it felt. And Bayonetta actually got a Star Fox minigame put into it if you had an amiibo that actually played pretty well. It was a bummer that it got focused around what it was. It drags it down pretty hard, and I don't blame anybody for just not even wanting to play it because of that. Because, yeah, you sort of have to force yourself through it if you don't like it. If you like it, it could be a neat little novelty, at least for that. But I would like more Star Fox. I would love to have more, and the thing is with that game, I'm not going to blame audience response necessarily for that one. The control gimmick stuff was because of Miyamoto, I think. I don't know if that's a question even. I do remember him even talking about it back at the time when they first showed the preview that they were making a Star Fox for Wii U. They didn't say anything else, they just showed a basic concept of it. And in interviews, I remember he was saying things like, oh yeah, you know, we're trying to figure out what to do with it to make it really stand out. I assume they probably were just going to make it a standard Star Fox game, and then, no, it's a Wii U game. You have to make it use the gamepad. You have to figure out a reason for the gamepad. If they didn't have that mentality, if they just opted for, let's just try to make the best Star Fox game we can, I don't think there would have been an issue. That game probably would have been solid. It's that they didn't need to do that to it. They really didn't need to, like, figure out a way to arbitrarily attach it to the Wii U gamepad. And, unfortunately, too, part of my blame for Miyamoto is also because I remember when Star Fox 64, like, 3DS came out, there was a quote from people that they were saying that Miyamoto told them that if it wasn't, like, the best received Star Fox game at the time, if it didn't do well enough, then Star Fox was dead as a franchise, so everything was really riding on that game. And it did fine, so it didn't die, but I'm sure he was still holding that mentality with Star Fox Zero, so now it probably is just going to be dead. It's why all the discussion about F-Zero and bringing it back, I don't like the sounds of it, because they always say things about, we don't know what to do with it, and to me that's like, is that because you're trying to figure out a weird way of attaching a gimmick to it? Because if that's what you're thinking about, that's probably why you don't know what to do with it. You should be thinking about how to improve on it, not how do we arbitrarily have some hook to go with it. Look guys, new controller. It doesn't need to do that necessarily. What made F-Zero such a solid franchise was just that it played so well. GX, though, wasn't directly Nintendo. It was Namco and Sega, right? Like, it was like a weird thing with that. It's probably part of the reason it was such a solid game and why it was also such a solid arcade experience and why it played as well as it did. I don't know if I would have faith in Nintendo to also outdo that one necessarily, the way that it all worked out. Yeah, I would love a GX re-release. I don't want a new F-Zero necessarily, but man, I would love a GX re-release. If they added the track editor that F-Zero X expansion kit had, you're done. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. If you just did like slight additions onto GX, I'm sure they still have the engine. You just did that. And Nintendo, you love re-releasing games. Oh my god, it's your favorite thing. It's your favorite thing. Doesn't it just make enough sense? Probably licensing issues, I would imagine, on that one. Because, yeah, GX is great. It's one of the best racing games I can think of, period. It's so good. It is such a good game. It'd be great if they were able to do something like that with it. I think with Miyamoto, it feels a lot like a Walt Disney situation, which is fair enough. Nintendo always wants to, like, say how they're inspired by Disney. Miyamoto feels like they want to present him as a Walt. They want him to be a character who... Because the quote I always think of from Walt Disney is this thing that says, oh, you know, Walt Disney doesn't smoke, Walt Disney doesn't drink. I smoke, I drink. The idea of Walt Disney, Walt is a character. I'm a person, I am Walt Disney, but I also play a character in front of people. He did acknowledge the idea of that, and I feel like that's what Miyamoto is sort of meant to be. You're supposed to be taken in by, you know, whimsy, child experiences that he had, finding their way into video games, you know, his inspiration and everything. He's supposed to be this beacon of, like, positivity and creativity. But no, if you hear most of the stories about him behind the scenes, he shuts down ideas hard. He impacts projects really hard, lifting from other places in some cases, and I mean, the Giga Leak had Argonaut emails leak out that gave a lot more information towards the history of, like, what happened with that planned Yoshi project for the Super Nintendo that didn't get off the ground, and then how that ended up kind of turning into Croc later on, and that Nintendo started taking some stuff from that for inspiration for Mario 64. I think back to how Miyamoto was the one fighting against the idea of Link being able to hold more than one item at a time, because he said you always have to have the sword. You can't have the sword be swapped out for anything else. It always has to be there. Because that's what they wanted to do for Game Boy Zelda, and that's why Game Boy Zelda was allowed to do it. And he did at least say later on, he went back on that. He felt like it was a mistake actually doing that. He liked what they came up with, but I feel like that's an easy thing to say after you were proven wrong. That no, actually, it led towards good ideas. You were stubborn about it, you didn't want them to do it, but they did it anyways, and hey, it was actually a good idea. He can be very controlling and demanding on a lot of projects. There's a lot that we're probably never going to know about him, and it was interesting, because it's part of why I think of Miyamoto that way. Gaming Historian did a video a while back trying to, like, really get to the bottom of origins of, like, Nintendo characters' names. and how Nintendo always has a story they present themselves, or Miyamoto will have a story he presents, except that's what he got into was these stories have absolutely never been consistent. Nintendo will say all these different things over the years, and it seems like they want you to feel like sometimes these things are more whimsical than they are, and then in actuality, they're not very whimsical. That's business, and makes enough sense to me. Miyamoto has done a lot of, like, nasty stuff behind the scenes, and some of it's been documented pretty well. I have respect for, obviously, the games that came out of his end, but it's unfortunate that there is, like, sort of a mentality that goes with all that, and there is a bit of a performance going with all of it as well, but that's Nintendo. Nintendo is very good at never being direct about anything, even though they have something called the Nintendo Direct, huh? You like Nintendo for their games and creativity, and then you get frustrated with them for constantly being behind on things and making questionable decisions, and guess I could make a list. That's why I can still have fun with a lot of Nintendo games, and I can acknowledge they're solid. My disappointment with them just comes from the fact of, I wish you guys were doing a bit better there, because, yeah, people want to see the best from you. They want to like Nintendo. They don't want to have a list of things to complain about or feel like, oh yeah, just don't say out loud you like Nintendo, otherwise they'll cease and desist you. I think Nintendo fans would like to actually feel like, I don't know, maybe they're appreciated to some degree. Man, don't remind me of Iwata. I brought this one up before, but I remember I kind of struggled thinking about it at the time, because after meeting so many people and working with so many people and taking so many jobs over the years, I remember getting asked just very directly, so who are like people that you look up to? And I had a very hard time just responding to that instantaneously, because I don't really do hero worship. I don't really think of people in that kind of way. I can understand that people are people. It's even with all this Miyamoto stuff. Miyamoto still has led to good projects. Oh yeah, he's also gotten in the way of a lot of things and has negatively impacted tons of projects and potentially shut down some pretty solid projects too. But Miyamoto's also led to good projects. People are people. And you have to understand that people are people. They're not like otherworldly beings, creators. They are still human beings. It's why I don't tend to do that sort of thing, but Iwata is one of the few people that I actually could probably say I have almost like infinite amount of respect for what he was willing to do for Nintendo, because he did go out of his way to try so hard to just polish games, test them excessively. He was responsible for so many of the major, like, milestones, too, from Nintendo's end when it came to their games. You can thank him for Earthbound, you can thank him for Gold and Silver, you can thank him for so many situations where he stepped in himself to work on a game and program and try to get something really working and running. He was so dedicated, and it is sad that he's gone, and it's been felt. It's definitely been felt, his absence. Doug Bowser, like all the switches that happened over there at Nintendo now, there's no Reggie. You do feel like a lot of the charisma and personality has sort of bled its way out. At least the games can still be fun, but it does feel like Nintendo themselves have lost a lot of that charm. And even then, man, you're never gonna find someone as dedicated as Iwata was. They should have been, like, I mean, I know they were thankful for having him, obviously, but, like, seriously, a worker who was willing to go out of his way to go work with a bunch of the coders on a project and try to fix a game with them, and not even expecting additional pay or anything to do that. That he cared so much about the games that he was like, no, I'll drop everything to go fix this game. I want the game to be fun, and I want the game to be good. I'm willing to do that. The fact they had someone like that, man. I want to watch more Game Center. We were finding some episodes. We were digging around. We finally found some episodes because I wanted to show it to Julian. I love Game Center CX, and right now I am recommending it to absolutely everybody here. If you need good gaming content, I mean good. If you want some of the best gaming content, go watch Game Center CX. Go look it up. Go look up Subtitle. Don't look up the Kotaku one, because Kotaku did get the rights to it, and boy, did they mess it up. They flubbed really hard with it. They made it fail pretty miserably over here, which sucks because, yeah, it's great. Game Center CX is fantastic. If you want to feel like passion for games again, just watch a few, even just one episode of it will do it. It's just so cozy as a show as well. And it's long. There's a lot there. It just feels like a really solid time the entire way through. It's fun watching somebody struggle to like get through a game they're unfamiliar with, and even having people come in, getting strategy guides and everything, really trying your hardest to finish a game, having all this trivia and information about a game you maybe never even heard of, getting like history about that game too. All of that's great, but the side stuff is really fun too. He'll go to arcades, he'll go to just little game shops and everything. It's such a good show. I can't recommend it enough. It's hard to find. I think Web Archive has a lot of it, at least, subtitled. But if you can find it, go watch it. I know there's even a Twitch stream, I think, that I don't know if it got taken down, but I know there was a Twitch stream where they were just marathoning episodes constantly. Easily the best game-related, like, anything I can think of as a show. It's so good. And I would say it's better than even, like, a lot of YouTube content and everything, too. It's just really, really, really good. Watch it, watch it, watch it if you haven't. Yeah, link the Twitch channel. In fact, yeah, is it up right now? I could even like raid them after the stream so you guys can watch. I love Game Center CX, and I was so happy to have had it to watch. When I was doing work at studios and everything at the time, it kept me motivated. Even if things were getting bleak, it still made me remember things that I cared about with games. In fact, I'm actually trying to remember a lot of that. Over, like, I think it was, like, yesterday, I was showing Julian some old stuff that I had made, like, old programming stuff I had done when I was, like, in high school. And I stumbled into one of my old folders. I found, a bunch of the pop and music simulators that I made, and one of them even still worked. I was surprised. Still worked. It's because I raw embedded note charts into it and everything, but still worked. And then I was playing ancient build of Tuba Croc, and I was realizing, man, I remember what this was like back then. This was me just loving arcade games and just wanting to make arcade games like crazy. I forgot about that. I forgot about that arcade games were like everything to me, and I was just always excited to be making things like this. And I forgot that mentality kind of left a bit. It left because not just working at companies and everything and being told no, I also just remember after doing so much like video stuff and everything too, and that people just want to see modern games, I was starting to even like lose focus towards that a bit. I needed to reacquaint myself with a lot of this stuff. I want to play rhythm games again. I want to play like, I mean, House of the Dead I've been playing plenty of, but yeah, I want to play a lot of old arcade titles again. I forgot that was one of my biggest passions, and it was commonplace. Those games were still coming out even a little bit. Like, when I was still in high school and everything, you're still seeing a little bit of that. I think I need to actually give myself like a crash course. I need to remind myself of all that again, because yeah, that was what I was most passionate about. That was what I liked the most. I forgot that I was doing so much of that when I was younger. I had like old beat-em-up engines and everything too, fighting game engines. I had so much stuff. I had run-and-gun engines. I was trying to recreate Metal Slug when I was in like middle school, I remember. That I found the test menu for Metal Slug 3, and I was looking at all of it and trying really hard to accurately recreate the movement of that game and like get it functioning the same way. Which, by the way, if you want to learn how to code, look at a game you like a lot and try to see if you can really accurately recreate it, because if you can, you're going to be learning from all that. You're going to be understanding all the decisions they made, why they use the numbers they use, why everything works the way it does. It's a great learning exercise if you're going to be making a game. Study the games that you like to play and understand why they work exactly the way that they do. Once again, there's no harm in knowing a lot about the things that you care about. If anything, that's a good thing. You should know a lot about the things that you care about. That's why you care about them. But it's something I've needed to remember too, because while working on Bippy, we had a little bit of weirdness with that. Because of how funding went up and down with it so much, which by the end of it we had to realize it's not even necessarily related to the project itself. It's also kind of just dependent on, like, anything. But while working on it, so much feedback, so many different responses and everything, it started getting into a position of, what should I even do with this? Should I just start getting rid of mechanics? Should I just start dropping things I want to do with this? And that's what I had to realize by the end of it was, no. If anything, just make the game that you know you're going to have the most fun with. Do the thing that you care the most about. And then from there, you can get feedback. You can see what people feel about it. But what's important is still to also aim for a thing that you're going to care about. You don't want to design a game that wasn't even for you necessarily. Like, 100% it wasn't even for you. You were just listening to a bunch of other people and awkwardly, like, hobbling all those ideas together. You should still be prioritizing your core idea. You should be listening to people, sure. But you shouldn't be forgetting what you want to do with it either. And that was actually starting to happen a little bit with Bippy. There were so many different responses to it. People unfamiliar with fighting games and beat-em-ups giving responses where it's like, that's understandable if this game was like a non-combat platformer, but it's not. And then on the opposite end, getting things like, well, that would make sense if this wasn't a platformer, but it is. I had to remember what it is I really wanted to do with all of it, and what I would have liked from all of it, and it's why I think it's feeling great right now. I'm actually super happy with what happened with the combat in it now. You can do so much, and it's so easy, and it all flows together so nicely now. I'm really happy with where it ended up. But that also had to come from me realizing a lot of that. I had to take a few steps back and go, well, what were the things I wanted to do the most, though? What were the ideas that excited me the most? What were the things that I really wanted to do here? I know these are the areas that people are like, no, that's too hard, or no, that's too scary or something, but what were the things that I would like to have in here? If you're making a game, it is important to remember that. It's true that most people just make demands towards everything now, too. That's why it is also a scary time to create things. If you are visible while creating something, expect everybody to have some sort of issue until the thing is eventually done. And then see where it goes from there. But yeah, I don't know. Playing a lot of old arcade games again recently and just remembering where a lot of passion was coming from. It's been helping. And I think it's been helping with me on just working on games and also just feeling motivated again. I always say it, but it's important to remember things that you get excited for. And that was always big for me. I forgot arcade games were my favorite thing ever. And I don't want to lose that. I want to remember a lot of that. Funnily enough, someone shared a Metal Slug 3 review with me over on Twitter, because it was a really bad review, obviously. That's why they shared it. But I think I remember the review because I remember a couple of reviews from Metal Slug 3 at the time. Xbox Magazine also reviewed it, and while they gave it like an 8, they were still complaining about aspects where I was like, oh, come on. Like, they wanted to still knock on it because, oh, but it's pixel art, though. Yeah, and it's gorgeous. It looks amazing. I can't believe, like, how detailed that pixel art is. It looks great. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. But at the time, oh, it's not 3D, though. There were a lot of reviews, I remember, from Metal Slug 3 when it came out of people doing that, and it made me so mad as a kid because it was a thing of, like, this game's amazing! Why are you trying to, like, deliberately shut it down? Deliberately! This game's great! It's super fun! The review that they sent me was specifically the reviewer complaining over and over again about how unfair it is and how mean it is and how, oh, you're just gonna get angrier and angrier until you eventually stop because you've continued too many times. I never had that as an experience. It's really weird when you have a reviewer telling you how you feel about something like that when you're like, that's weird, I've never felt that before. But it was a thing I did learn to get past, at least. That I did just accept that at the time, that it's like, oh, whatever. Reviewers are gonna shit on it because it's a 2D game and it's not what they want things to be currently. It's not matching up with all the games that are pushing hardware standards at the moment. Therefore, it doesn't count. And then, where's Metal Slug 3 now? Well, still a widely loved game. Metal Slug as a series, still widely loved. X and 3 are still two of the favorites to almost everybody. And when I was younger, I would have considered it probably one of my favorite games of all time. I love Metal Slug 3. Metal Slug X is also really, really, really good. Really good games. My opinions are entirely formed by reviewers I like because I don't think hard about it. I mean, I don't think that's a good thing to do. I don't like that, and I think YouTube is actually what kind of spawned the idea of just be the mirror image of the creator you like. Some people do it deliberately. I remember a lot of early like video game essay stuff really felt like this video exists for you to copy and paste and send to your friends, and it can be your opinion. I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because they're not going to fully speak for you one-for-one, and some of the stuff they bring up didn't really come from your end, it came from their end. You might agree with them, they might bring up stuff that you're like, yeah, that's a good point, and you agree, but I would hope there's still, like, a middle ground where you also have your own thoughts and feelings on it. It's not just that, this is a guy I like, so I'm just going to take his opinion. People do it, though. It's why game reviewers prior to, like, YouTube stuff, they were hoping for a lot of that, because there wasn't really anything else, so people had to kind of run with it for a while. If the overall score for a game was low, that means the game is bad, right? People couldn't be, like, wrong about that kind of thing, right? God Hand is a bad game, right? Imagine Party Babies is a good game, right? It is important to remember the things, like, on your own end. You have your own opinions. You exist. You have thoughts. Maybe it's scary to let them out, but you should understand them. You shouldn't, like, try to push them aside completely. These aren't necessarily easy songs I can recommend because these are all production music. The reason I have these is because X-Band, Sega Channel, I'm trying to figure out what else. Nintendo did use these a few times. I pointed out during one of the streams we're watching Nintendo's, like, it was a leaked, like, insider investor, like, E3 video they were presenting, which had a calendar planned for the year that they were talking about, their marketing schedule. And they were using the song during it. They used a couple of these songs. Just very common production music for the time. I do have a bunch of these licensed, so that's why I have them. I have the original, like, high-quality recordings of them and everything. So that's why these are a little bit hard to recommend. I do have a playlist that has, like, shorter versions and lower quality uploads, like, in there, though. I have shared that before. But, I think this one's called Meltdown is the name of it. No, it's really good production music. This one's actually a favorite. When I heard this one, it was like, I need to find this one. This, 100%, this is what video games sounded like during, like, 1993 to, like, 97. This is what video games sounded like. I absolutely had to find this one. I needed to license this one. I think I do have, actually, Bionic Groove, the high-quality version of it. I'd have to go look. Because, yeah, I know the upload on YouTube of that one, someone did it from, like, their TV or something, so it's, like, distorted. I think I do have the high quality of that one, though. Because that was one that I licensed. I made it a priority to, like, individually look up each one and go to the different labels and everything. Because they are spread out. They're not all through the same label. You have to go through a few of them. But we do have a bunch of them licensed. And by the way, this is me with absolutely no money. we barely have money anyways. me going out of my way to license all of this so we could use all of it. And we did. We used one of the songs that we licensed in a preview trailer for something. YouTube marked it anyways. It didn't matter. I did everything I was supposed to. I did everything that was completely legal. More legal than what most people bothered to do on YouTube. People just lift music. They don't care in a lot of cases. So I went out of my way to legally license it and everything. And even then, YouTube still just didn't care. So there's a warning for that for people too with production music. Yes, obviously license it if you're going to be using it, but keep in mind, all these systems, they exist because people are fucking lazy. They want a computer to run everything for them, so they don't look into any of it. So even if you did all the right things, don't worry, they're not doing anything right. So you can expect issues anyways. It stinks. Are you watching ALGS or are you even into esports? Not really, because esports, I like competitive games to some degree, like fighting game tournaments I'll watch, sometimes, depending on what the event is. Like Combo Breaker, I'll always watch Combo Breaker. I would recommend it over Evo. But, esports became a big priority for a reason. I did talk about this on stream before. AAA gaming took big notice of it, and it's also why EA for a long time was really pushing towards, multiplayer. It's all about multiplayer. Because they wanted esports money. Esports has sponsorship deals. Esports requires players to have to buy the new game no matter what, because if a tournament is being announced and it's for a game that hasn't even released yet, well shit, you have to go buy that game now, don't you? Otherwise, how are you going to practice? You have to buy it. It just makes money for itself, which is why so many game studios started prioritizing esports. It wasn't because they had a passion for it or they were that invested, because they saw it as a big money-making opportunity. That's the area I don't care for whatsoever. I don't care about any of that. I like seeing people like having fun competing in games and like watching competitive scenes come together and like see what kind of progress has been made, like labbing out a game and everything too. All that's interesting to me. I don't really care about sponsorship deals and like whatever like player bouts are happening or whatever like dramas are happening. That stuff isn't that interesting to me. I like just seeing the actual games and people playing them. Oh, multiverses makes me really annoyed for that. Multiverses, I brought it up on stream, but I will bring it up again. I only make mention of these things because I know nobody else is going to do it, especially if they took a contract deal, they can't. Multiverses, if you're wondering why so many people are talking about it, it's because Warner Brothers went out of their way to pay a bunch of people to talk about it. And they also have them sign off on contracts, which is why in some videos you'll probably hear somebody mention, now I am on contract, or now I'm only allowed to speak about a few things, or I was given an early copy for... That's why there was a lot of that when Multiverses was like first being shown off. They were going really hard on paying people to show that game. Really, really, really hard. Combo Breaker has like everything. That's why I would say if you actually like fighting games, you actually like them. You don't care about the big like performative end of it really, or like where fighting games scene in terms of like industry is, because Evo kind of exists for that. Evo is the big new games will be here. The most supported games don't necessarily have to be here. The games that people like playing the most don't necessarily have to be here. It's more so as like a giant stage for showing commercials for new fighting game stuff. If you actually want to see just lots of fighting games, lots of variety, all sorts of scenes, ones that have existed for like 30 years, about 30 years, I would say. I was almost about to say 40, but I'm not that old. They haven't been going that long. About over 30 years now, though, yeah, with some games. But if you wanted to see like everything, you want to see fighting games, not just cherry-picked, these are the recent releases, you want to see fighting games, watch Combo Breaker. Very, very, very good event. Lots of fun. So much variety. It's always a good time. Evo is just a commercial now. No, Evo's always kind of been a commercial. people saying the sort of thing of like, well, it really turned into this now. I think it's just people have taken notice. Because some of this stuff, I've talked about this for like 6 or 7 years now. In some cases, I've probably talked about it for like 12 years even. No, this stuff has been around for a long time. It's just people don't really tend to notice until enough time passes. Because initial conversations can kind of wind down. People being overly supportive and everyone who's, you know, in on it, they don't talk as much. And then newer people coming in, because there's more and more and more of them, they start talking more, and eventually that's what overtakes the older discussion. Discussion will just naturally shift over time because generations are going to come through. You're going to have new people, and new people are going to be then observing what was there previously before they were there, and then they're going to respond to it. That's why EVO, I'm sure a lot of people now do feel like it's a giant commercial, but no, it's been like this for ages. They constantly were doing this sort of thing. That's why just a few years back they had all of those shocking things come out about them too, what was going on for ages. It's not a new thing that they're a giant commercial. They've always been one. Earlier on, it was more passion-driven, though. It was. But since, like, 2010s, it's been a gigantic commercial. It's been that way for a while. I think that's a good thing. Whoever just said that in the chat. I think that's a good idea. The idea of waiting maybe a year or two before playing a game so you don't get swept up into hype. I think that's a good idea. I don't see any issue with that. Julian's done it himself. He told me that he waited a long time before playing Undertale just because he didn't want any of the bias, he didn't want people spoiling it for him, he didn't want any of that around him. He just wanted to take it in for that by itself. And he enjoyed it. And that's important to do. It is. Because there are plenty of games that people get really excited for that like first month and insist it's the most important thing ever. Then it just kind of gets brushed aside. Fall Guys is one that I really think of for that. I had a lot of people trying really, really, really hard to get me to play Fall Guys. And I said it to each person that it didn't feel like an actual like game people want to play. It just feels like because everyone is currently discussing it, that's the reason they're playing it. And then some new meme game is going to come out and replace it instantaneously, and then that game will eventually get replaced. And then surely enough, Fall Guys, I know it's still around and everything. It didn't go away, but yeah, most people stopped playing because Among Us. And Among Us wasn't even new. Among Us actually was a game that existed for a few years already, but it got popular, and pretty quickly people switched off from Fall Guys right away onto Among Us, and Among Us stuck for a while. Still a meme, still a joke that people bring up all the time. It's not as popular now, but still played to a like decent extent. But Fall Guys, yeah, it fell off really hard when that Among Us thing happened. Once again, it's still around, but yeah, most people dropped off. It was just sort of everyone's here right now, so play it. What? You're not like weird, are you? We're normalizing this right now. Like, you're not the weird guy, are you? Not playing the thing that everyone else is doing? It can happen a lot. And it is that idea of, hey, everyone's jumping off a cliff. I'm kidding with Fall Guys. It's not like it was a heinous game or anything. No. It wasn't, like, horrible or bad or anything. I wasn't really into it. But I can understand the appeal. It's simple, straightforward enough. It could be fun in, like, bursts, I guess, but I wanted more from it. It wasn't the kind of game I really wanted to play. I didn't really like the style of it or the presentation. But, yeah, it fell off for a lot of people, and that was kind of why they got invested or hopped into it to begin with. Because there was a lot of hype around it. Hype can really do things for people. I wish I had played Mother 3 before Undertale. Yeah, I will say that. Maybe I, like, I should recommend the Mother series in that kind of way to people in the future. If you have already played Undertale, those games are probably going to be impacted a bit for you because you're going to go, wait, I remember all of this, though. Yeah, it's because Undertale very directly lifts a lot of beats from those games. Not just that it's heavily referential and it's, trying to imitate a lot of it in just terms of design and everything too. No, even just moments, like very direct moments kind of get referenced. You probably do want to play Mother 3 before you play something like Undertale. I think you want to experience that first because, yeah, it's going to change it a bit if you don't. And Mother 3, personally, I feel is much, much, much stronger to me in terms of like a personal connection to it than something like Undertale. I had fun with Undertale. The plot actually wasn't the thing that really carried me through it the most. I liked a lot of the decisions made around, like, exploration, around so many factors, so many little details, having so many variables that can go towards, like, impacting the game in just slight ways. Obviously, that was interesting to me. The battle system actually was pretty interesting if it weren't for the fact that most battles are just you choosing the same option over and over again to wait them out, and you just dodging things. And the dodging stuff is fun, but it also felt like some of the most interesting concepts that could come from that came from the genocide route, which is a little bit of an accident because obviously that's not the route they're encouraging. But yeah, it was sort of a mixed bag for me. I liked some stuff in it. I wasn't really too big in others. The humor is the thing that really didn't hit for me. I wasn't really into most of its humor. Some of it I was. I thought some parts were funny. But a lot of the internet humor finding its way in just didn't do much for me. His anime reel didn't do anything for me. Can't blame a bark for trying, didn't do anything for me. But Deltarune, I've actually been enjoying more. It feels like the second part is kind of teetering more towards goofiness, which is fine. It's not like I have an issue with that. It's always going to be goofy, but the first part was actually kind of grounding itself a bit more, which I was interested by. I still had a lot of fun with the second part. In fact, there's a lot of variety in it. It was a good time. I'm looking forward to what's going to happen next with it. It feels like a very natural progression from Undertale. So while Undertale's kind of like, I'd say like probably a 7 out of 10 game to me, Deltarune's shaping up. I'm really, really interested in seeing where it's going to go. I had a decent time with Undertale, but Deltarune feels like the area where they're going to be like really fleshing out and polishing up some of those concepts. Yeah, I've been hearing about Everhood. I should try it. The fact that it's very, very directly trying to imitate Undertale on some of it, I think is what was pushing me away. I don't like, I guess, like a multi-layered situation of that. Undertale is very heavily referential. The fact that it's called Undertale, it's because the name is supposed to be kind of like Cave Story. The game starts off very similar to Cave Story. The goat people look very similar to the rabbit people in Cave Story. So when you have a game kind of being derivative of a game that's already supposed to be a little bit derivative, it feels kind of odd. But I've seen stuff of it. It looks interesting. I just haven't tried it yet. I guess I didn't feel like motivated enough quite yet to go for it, but I should give it a shot sometime soon. I am interested in what it does. I mean, that's also a problem, the fact that it's called Everhood. I do think Neverhood. No, that is something that irritated me about Undertale. It felt like it was forcing a lot of its emotional moments onto me, because the one that I always bring up, killing Toriel, not everybody did it, but the vast majority of people I knew, and I'm sure if you took a percentage of players, it would be a really big number of them. Yes, it's true, they give you a vague hint towards not doing it. The game doesn't indicate it the best, and that's what a lot of people ended up doing, was accidentally killing her at the start because they thought, I have to, I guess. It's not letting me spare her. I tried it a couple of times. Nothing's changing. It changes eventually, but there is a window. There's a few turns where nothing really changes to indicate you're doing the right thing. So some players just give up and go, okay, I guess it doesn't work. And then everyone starts insulting you and telling you how horrible you are and how you're a murderer and how awful you are. And man, they can't shut up about it, can they? They really want you to feel like you're such a bad, disgusting person. By the way, she was closed off from everyone. How did you all hear about this? What's going on here? What? Excuse me? It doesn't work. Stuff like that works when a player consciously makes a decision. When they did not make that decision intentionally, and you're going to do that the entire game. I actually had a friend who told me he stopped playing because it annoyed him too much. It frustrated him enough that he wanted to just reset his file, but he didn't know how to do it because obviously it's going to keep that in memory. So it's like, okay, sorry, I got caught on a thing that I didn't really know about, and now you're going to just treat me this way eternally because of it. I can understand frustration with that for sure. I think that could easily annoy some people when it comes to its narrative. It shouldn't be doing this like guilt-trippy thing to you, which is a lot of its writing. It does feel like it wants to prioritize that. Deltarune's a lot more natural with it, and because it's more of like a moral gray area with the party and how it functions as a game, I do think that's a lot more compelling too. I think it's a lot more interesting. I think it's a lot more interesting to explore like all ends of a storyline anyways, as opposed to fencing things off around acting like you have a really advanced moral system going when really it is just as simple as either don't kill anybody or kill everybody. Otherwise you just get kind of a gray ending that doesn't matter. I liked some stuff, like I said, about Undertale in terms of its story, but that's why I've been saying Deltarune I think fleshes it all out a lot more, and I'm really interested to see where it's going to keep going. I think the whole I didn't play this because of the fan base thing is the thing you grow out of. It is for sure. I think the older you get, you realize that you can't just hold that mentality because fan bases in general are always really weird and obsessive. You can't necessarily let that control you. But it's why I also said I do think it's valuable to distance yourself from that too, because distancing yourself from that can also remove the bias of that. You have a hard time really disconnecting from a fan base, then give it time so you can forcibly disconnect and then try it out. And there you go. Now you don't have the bias of it. You can just see it for what it is. I do think that's valuable to do if you have to do it. And I think for a lot of people, it can't be helped sometimes. Sometimes when people shove something down your throat enough, it's like, okay, you're making me uncomfortable about this now. You are being so demanding about it that it's making it kind of weird for me. It can impact people in a way too. I mentioned it before, there was a really big post that got popular on Twitter that it was someone saying you're not interesting or compelling by disliking Harry Potter or Star Wars, so shut up. When it's like, people are allowed to dislike Star Wars or Harry Potter. I don't care for either of them personally. It's not a thing about showing off. But that's how some people feel, that it's a thing of like, hey, you don't like the thing I like? You're attacking me now, and you need to go away. You're not interesting. You think you're interesting? You think you're interesting because you're not me? People are really weird about this stuff. People hold entertainment in a weird way. That's why I totally get people needing to distance themselves from that. It's why people get into stupid arguments all the time online too, because they see it's not just the thing with like video game biases and everything that's like, oh man, I saw a fandom be really annoying with this, so now I think the thing is bad. It happens like with every discussion online. It's why on Twitter, if something is like in discussion for a week, the next week, everybody will flip position because they go, actually, now I'm on the opposite side because I'm tired of hearing about this. It's so annoying. Ugh. People really struggle with that as an area. I can understand why people have difficulty with it. But you do need to recognize it. You do need to figure that out when it's happening and sort of distance yourself from it. You don't want to like get lost to that yourself. I guess what's weird to me about it is it's entertainment. You're supposed to be entertained by it. That's why it's really weird when people are like taking up pitchforks over it. It's like, are you being entertained anymore? Are we still having fun here? I'm a little bit worried here. You were telling me about this video game you liked, but then the discussion suddenly changed, and now you seem really angry about this game you like because other people aren't liking it the right way. Or opposite end, the same thing of like, hey, you're telling me how much you like games, and now you're just constantly getting angry about the game that you just bought, but you seem to like. Is this entertainment anymore? You're like starting fights with people about this too? Are you being entertained anymore? I hope you're still having fun. I guess fair enough, some people just have fun getting angry. Seems to be the coping mechanism at the moment, but it can be hard. I can understand why it's hard. But once again, don't feel like it's the end of the world for something like that. You should be able to understand the things that you enjoy. And you don't have to feel like anyone else has to enjoy it necessarily, but you're free to share that stuff with people if you're hoping to get them into it. And if they're not into it, they're not into it. I think it's just easy to understand that people are people. Everybody's going to be different. What makes up most people anyways is just their opinions anyways. That's what kind of defines a person. Just their interests, their opinions. Everyone's going to be different. That's kind of the point. Sure wouldn't be interesting if everyone was the same. I think these game reviews we read today were sort of proving that. If everything just turned into Madden NFL, I don't think things would be so interesting. It's kind of nice to have some variety, have differences. I think this one's called Misdemeanor, the song. Thank you, Space Bakery, $10. I'm glad you're feeling better. I always love this magazine streams. Thank you. And yeah, I want to do more magazine streams in the future. I wanted to make a layout specifically for magazine streams. I had an idea a while back. I need to buy, like, gloves for it. I had an idea. I found an old Brady Games cheat code book I had from when I was a kid. When I was going through, like, drawers a while back. And I was wondering about maybe doing that. Maybe just doing a stream of booting up a bunch of games and just kind of going through the cheat code book and trying out different codes that are listed. So having the book there, having it open, like actually having it there on the floor and like flipping through it and everything. But then also switching over to the games and trying codes out and just running through a bunch of games and just trying stuff. That might be a fun stream. That might be a fun thing for the future. Because there's a lot of old game media like this, and I feel like this stuff is the stuff that gets touched the least. Game magazines don't get covered very often because, hey, they're old, they're outdated. But this is where you're going to find a lot of game history. People who just do basic Wikipedia combs, no, that's not enough. Read old game magazines. If you really want to know where people's mentalities were back at the time when a game released, read a bunch of game magazines. That's going to give you a lot of insight. It's also going to probably, you know, give you weirdness. You're going to get reviews like some of the ones we read today, but it gives you insight. At least lets you know where people were at. A lot of people, I remember back in like 2008, 2009, talking to a lot of friends and everything, and I remember everybody being so convinced that it was like, yeah, things were just so much better. Those game magazines we read when we were younger, way better than where things are like at currently. And while I would still, I guess, agree with that, old game magazines are at least really fun and colorful. Yeah, no, review-wise, no. Don't worry, game reviews were always goofy. No, not quite. We were just feeling that way because we grew up with it, I guess. But no, it's always kind of been this way. It's important to look back on these things. I feel like strategy guides and like cheat code books, those are especially like old things that people probably just aren't even too familiar with. It's the same thing about X-Play. I mean, that one did blow my mind. That when we were having very early discussions about G4, people saying things like, oh, X-Play is fantastic though, it's phenomenal. And then we watched some, we put some of those reviews on over here, and even recently I was going through, I just showed the one a few days ago, House of the Dead 2 and 3 on the Wii. really solid compilation. I'm glad I did research on my own, because initially I was just searching for it and reading up on stuff, and the first thing I saw was the Metacritic. Why does this have a 60? I'm sorry, is House of the Dead 2 and 3 not good? Is it like a bad port? That's what I was worried about. I was scared about, was it actually a bad port? Because I rented it when I was younger, and I remember it being really fun. Is this a bad port? Should I just ignore this game? Should I not actually bother getting this now? But then I read all the reviews. No, they were the same thing as this magazine we just read. It was a lot of people saying, why are you playing this? There's a new game on the Wii that's using the zapper peripheral, and guess what? It's padded out, it's slow, it's long. That's the better game. No one likes House of the Dead. This is a terrible series. It's outdated, bad, unfair, hard. Oh. I'm sorry you feel that way, but no. A lot of people like House of the Dead. It was an iconic series for a reason, but still to this day I hear about it. The game that they were pointing to was, oh god, I already forgot the name of it. Umbrella Chronicles. I played it when I was younger. It's not a bad game necessarily, but it's very slow, and if you're not a Resident Evil fan, I don't think you're going to be into it, honestly. It's okay. I never played it a second time. I played it once, and I was sort of done. But that's what I'm saying here is, yeah, it was kind of neat, I guess, when it came out, but I remember House of the Dead. I forgot about Umbrella Chronicles. I sure didn't forget about House of the Dead. But this review told me, actually, no, I never liked it all along, and actually Umbrella Chronicles is what all these games should turn into, which, if you say so, because that's the newest release, and it's Resident Evil, I guess. Most of the reviews were like that, and surely enough, G4, right in there, there was G4's review, there was the X-Play review, giving it a really low score. Oops, they did that a lot. They very often gave games like a 1 out of 5 for the stupidest reasons imaginable, and they were trying hard to tilt review scores towards a negative position. They did it very often. No, X-Play was not that great. It really wasn't. It existed, and it was charming enough for the time because of what it was. Things were also very amateur when it came to like nerd culture at the time, when it came to any media around it. So it had its charm, it was endearing in a way. But looking back on it now, it's just kind of frustrating because that's what you get to realize. Oh, some of these games got negatively impacted because of this show. Things got knocked down because of this show. And then if you know all the history too about the internships and people not really being paid and how it was all structured and that they didn't even write their own scripts, yeah, it gets a lot more frustrating. But yeah, people had very, 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 very fond memories of it. Because I grew up with it, and understandable, I grew up with G4, I had some fond memories around it, but revisiting a lot of it and even remembering where it ended up later on, I was able to recognize that I wanted to like it, because I like video games, but I could understand the damage that was also being done through it. It's very easy for people to have like fond memories of the things they grew up with, because you don't have as much of a worldview. You haven't been able to experience as much yet. When you're 5 years old and you're playing a video game, you're thinking, wow, this is cool. I don't think you're thinking about all the people who made it, or how they made it, or what kind of software they were using to make it, or what coding languages they were using, or what kind of hardware they were on. I don't think you're considering most of that. I think you're just thinking, this video game is fun, and you're playing it. When you get older, you're going to start seeing those aspects, though, because you're going to be more familiar with the world. That's why it's probably so much easier to always think back to when you were younger and feel passionate for it, because, yeah, things were easier. You didn't have to think about it as much. But if you were older during that time period, that's not how you'd be processing things, and you probably would be seeing the negative side of even those things that you were so fond of when you were younger. I think it's just a process. Quite nostalgia can really trip people up, but if you can recognize that kind of thing, it also doesn't necessarily have to get in the way. It's true, yes. X-Play was a lot of skits. It is what partially people liked about it. They liked the skits. They're kind of awkward to go back to now. Just because, like, I don't know, it's awkward nerd humor. But yes, lots of the show just being skits. Only a few reviews. And the reviews are actually kind of the worst part of the show, because like I said, they didn't write their own reviews. Interns were writing those. It's why the recent thing that just happened with G4, that they talked about that their one person ended up admitting on stream, we have 10 like interns writing our scripts and everything. That's because that's how it used to work too. G4 barely paid the people that work there. Interns were handling most of the actual like grunt work there, and barely seeing anything for it, barely being credited. And for something like X-Play, yeah, Adam and Morgan Webb were not doing their own reviews. The interns were writing them. I know about that because I specifically had a friend who even did some work for X-Play way back in the day, and that's what they were telling me about, was that it was a process. You had to work your way up. You started out writing reviews for really bad games that nobody even cared about, like sports titles, and you would take pay that after like almost a month's worth of a month's worth of work. There we go. That's a tongue twister. After working on something for a solid month, you'd probably see like $200 for it. And that was it. And then they wouldn't necessarily even fully commit to your script. They might cut a lot of it. Sorry. Ugh. But the thing that they also did was that you had to work your way up. You had to show you were loyal. If you kept doing reviews, then eventually they would slowly start giving you better games. Not better pay, just better games to review. And that was sort of the process. That's why recently a lot of people have been also just listing how much their pay rate was for a lot of their jobs in the past when it comes to the gaming industry. A lot of people listing off G4, that was usually the place paying them the absolute least out of anywhere they've ever worked. That's why, once again, if you grew up with X-Play, oh sure, you're gonna have fondness for it and everything, but it was a complete mess internally. It was a big mess. And like I said, it negatively impacted the industry in a lot of ways too. It was there to sort of just give a negative tilt to a lot of review scales. And they went hard. It was a very similar thing to most of G4. Is this not a Western property that they paid us money to advertise? Okay, that's a 1 out of 5 already. What? A JRPG? Nope, 1 out of 5. What? Resident Evil Code Veronica? Nope, 1 out of 5. They did it a lot. They love to do it. And they would even take that attitude of like acting very, very smarmy about it while knocking down a review scale for arbitrary reasons. They're very proud of doing it. You had a lot of reviewers doing that. I feel like that was a consistent factor since the 90s. Game reviewers being very proud about the fact that they were deliberately just trying to knock a game down. So they're gonna even insult you for potentially liking that game. Isn't IGN giving people $20? Yes. That's like $20 per article or something. They made a post about it. Which, thankfully, most people who did respond to that post, at least people just called it out saying, like, that's absolutely criminal. Are you kidding me? Why would anybody want to work for that rate? Because the work that they're going to be doing is going to be taking more than an hour for sure. You're being paid less than minimum wage for something like that. Why would you want to do that? Why would you even want to waste your time with that? So you can be on IGN of all places? What, so maybe eventually you can work your way up to being an intern at G4? New G4? Maybe you can be like an awkward stagehand at the Video Game Awards? Do you want to like be an understudy for like Bobby Kotick? Maybe that's what you can be working your way up towards, I guess. I don't know why necessarily you'd want to prioritize that. And IGN was already kind of a joke back at the time when we were all younger. IGN at this point seriously is just cemented as that. I don't think people legitimately care about IGN at this point. I think most people just take it with a grain of salt, and if they're going to look at it, they're sort of looking at it to be curious, or because the video got recommended, or it's one of the first looks at least. So it's your only choice. Working at McDonald's would get you more money, because I did bring this up. We were walking through town last month, since we were terrified with health concerns and everything, and we've already had money fall out of things just because people want us to really push towards videos more than working on projects. But then if we're not working on projects, the people who want to see the projects are upset because then we're not, prioritizing that now that we're doing video stuff. That's why if I've ever had to take side jobs too that can impact things, it's always been a really tough balancing act with all of this. But we walked by the McDonald's and I saw the pay rate, and I turned to Julie and I said, "You see that? If I was working there, I feel like we'd probably be doing better financially than we even are now." And yeah, the IGN thing, yeah, definitely, for sure. Working at McDonald's is probably going to pay you better than working for IGN. And they're doing that deliberately, they know that. They've also been losing a bit of money, I know, but they're doing that too because they're hoping to take advantage of people who are excited about video games. That's always why they do this. Why game industry specifically loves to take advantage of fresh young faces. You're excited because it's video games. You don't know enough yet. What? You're coming in here? For example, if you're applying for like an internship at G4, they're probably thinking in their heads, all of them sitting like at the table as they're talking to you. What? You came in here willingly? You want to work here? Are you... Okay. All right, this guy doesn't know anything. Oh my god. He willingly came in here? That's what IGN's kind of hoping to pull, I think, with that. I mean, people do that. People, not just like, yes, obviously, like, they're probably thinking to themselves, oh my god, he's signing, I can't believe this, but people seem to really not pay attention to this stuff ever when it comes to contracts. I remember in some cases in the past, when I've had some presented to me, people were surprised when I actually asked for revisions or I went over it with them, because it's like, that shouldn't be a surprise. In some cases, I shouldn't even say in some cases, really in most cases, that should be expected, that it's not just, I'm gonna sign on the line and not look at anything that you just presented me with. People do it constantly, and it's like, you're setting yourself up for disaster by doing that. You need to read it. And the way that's a tough one to even like give advice towards, because I'm not like a legal expert or anything. The way that I always just try to navigate it was read it in order, because they'll usually do something like they present something being not a part of the agreement. Then as you continue to read, the next passage makes it a part of the agreement. Then the next passage removes it again. So by the end, you get to go, okay, so I read all of it, and I read it in order. This is not a thing you're giving me. You snuck it in here to, like, remove it again. You made it seem like it wasn't present, then it is present, but in actuality it was never present, and I guess you were hoping I wasn't going to read that. That's what a lot of agreements can even turn into. Loopholes, there's all sorts of stuff that, when you're initially even being presented a contract, it's to benefit their end. Usually it's going to be purely to benefit their own end, and that's why it's good to read it over and look it over. You don't want to screw yourself over, and that's the best way to do it. If you don't know what you're signing, how do you know you're not signing like an NDA that's going to be like lifelong or something? And no, it's not going to hold up in court, obviously, but how do you know you're not like selling off the rights to something that you even own? How do you know that you're not doing a lot of this stuff? You need to look through. You need to actually read what you're signing. And it seems like people don't do that a lot for positions like these. You don't want to get yourself screwed over. People have gotten hurt a lot. It's why in some cases, too, people finally say something like 10 years later and people are like, why are you now saying something? That's awfully suspicious. And then they go, because I was stupid and I signed an NDA that I wasn't allowed to say anything for 10 years. That's why that can happen too. You want to be careful. You should be there for yourself. Try to look out for yourself. Even if something sounds like really exciting, if it sounds too good to be true, it might be. You should try to be, taking care of yourself. Don't just be pulled in by that kind of thing. You could easily get hurt. Who would you say is worse, though? IGN or G4? Probably G4. Yeah, that's the thing. Someone just said, for as bad as IGN is, at least they have, like, some resources and information on there. G4 doesn't really have anything to give you at all. G4 can, like, use view bots. That's a thing they do. I guess that doesn't really benefit you as a viewer, though, or you as a worker. Not to mention, if you're one of the interns writing their scripts, you're probably not even really seeing a spotlight in any way at all. You're assisting people who already were given the spotlight. I mean, it does really confuse me, because someone just said reading it always ends up badly. I mean, it's in everything. It's in movies. It's everywhere. There's constant warnings about getting taken advantage of in that kind of way. That's why people keep writing it into things, too. They're trying to warn people. That shows up so often in media for a reason. They are trying to warn you preemptively. That's not a fictional situation they created for, like, humor's sake that just happened to be an ongoing joke. It's a real thing. You should look out for yourself. People do get pulled in by it. People get overly excited and don't want to read into it. G4 had some fun stuff back before. We've talked about it too many times. G4, probably this is the place you're going to hear about G4 the most. Not even on G4's own channel. This is probably where you're going to hear about them the most. Just because I watched them when I was younger, I paid attention to everything. I know the history of the channel. And once again, it's why when I did do the video, because people have come back to the video now to say things about, like, wow, you seem to really know what they were going to do with the, like, new angle they're taking and everything, too. It's because it wasn't surprising in any way. I knew what G4 was. I already knew. I'm familiar with it. It wasn't going to be surprising at all that, yes, they're going to pretend that that angle that they had in the past isn't relevant anymore because they only adopted it because it was currently beneficial to them. They're going to just do whatever the current thing is and hope that they can feel trendy and hip and get a bunch of people over there, and then basically do what they did before, Comcast not paying anybody and just making a bunch of interns do all this grunt work for a couple of people who still don't even get paid that much. The reason they started the new G4 is because Comcast was looking into doing stuff. Xfinity, sorry. It's Arena. They're hoping to get involved with esports. That's why I made mention of esports at the beginning of that video, because I knew absolutely 100% this is why they're partially doing this. Esports is going to be a really big focus for them because money, 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 money. And that's why they're even throwing their hat in there. That's why they're making their own arena. It's not surprising at all why they're trying to do G4 again. They were doing it again because, shit, we were like one of the first people doing this. We had a TV channel for video games. Why didn't it work? Video games are like everywhere now. Look at this. There's Twitch TV. There's all this stuff. We were the first. No, something's not right here. We're going to bring this back and people are going to be excited. They were hoping for a lot. They were hoping that there was like goodwill, lots of nostalgia for it when G4 was kind of a joke when it was running to a lot of people. Some people were fond of it, obviously. Some people grew up with it. I was watching it for a window. But by the end, most people understood it was a joke. It fizzled out for a reason. It turned into just cops and cheaters. It fell apart. When it was trying to become the new Spike TV, that's when a lot of people were just jumping ship. stupid time. I wish. I was practicing music again last week, and it was nice. I'm starting to actually kind of get it all broken in and everything. Julian was in the room. I was able to play some songs for a while. I was having a good time. I am not going to chance it this week. I am way too dizzy, and I know if I'm going to try to play, I'm just going to get dizzy and, like, make myself sick. When I don't feel as dizzy, I'll probably be practicing again. It's too bad. Practice more. At least other instruments wouldn't be as intense in that kind of way. If you're just playing keyboard or something, you wouldn't have to really worry too much about dizziness. But a 40-pound thing sitting in your lap that you're blowing into really, really, really hard, and also trying to control it that you don't want your cheeks like puffing out too much, because I know you can like tear muscle lining inside your mouth if you do that. It's a great way to just constantly have your face vibrating, and then I'm sure I would just get dizzy and I'm gonna give that like another week. But I have been practicing. I have been finding some time to practice music again, which has been nice. I do miss the time that I was just doing a lot of stuff too with like rhythm game stuff. Because on stream, I remember when people were asking me about Friday Night Funkin', that I was like, yeah, I'm interested to see where it's going to go. It's too early right now. I need to see more. But I remember I was talking about some stuff about rhythm games, what I enjoy, and there was some stuff with Friday Night Funkin' when it was very early on. I think they've improved it later here. For it, charts weren't timed too well. Things felt really off about it. So I was kind of like, yeah, I probably, like, these charts would probably work better in Step Mania than they do in the actual game right now. There's some weird stuff with timing. And I remembered having a lot of people responding like, oh, well, what do you know? I did used to work on rhythm game simulators a lot. To be fair, though, it's okay. That doesn't mean, like, I'm an expert or anything. I'm not. There's still a lot that I wouldn't know how to necessarily do certain things like the most optimal. But the most when I was in high school, Guitar Hero I made, I think 3 different like rhythm simulators for. Poppin' Music I made 4 of them. Beatmania I made 1. DDR I made 3 of them. And I even got 1 working in Click and Play, which was pretty crazy. That was reading the proper note charts and everything. I love the Bemani format, by the way. The BMS format is great. It is fantastic. It is so smart the way it's thought out. It is so handy. It is so useful. And I miss them. And practicing music again, it's been making me even want to play like rhythm games again too. I just usually don't get time for this kind of thing because of work. I guess that's why I fell out of rhythm games now that I think about it. Work. I guess that's why I fell out of rhythm games. Why I fell out of music in general. Work. Because I was talking about that just a bit ago, that I was like, oh yeah, I really liked arcade games a lot, and I kind of forgot about that because as so much time went on and so much demand to only play modern games, I forgot about the games that I was really the most passionate about. Well, that too, rhythm games. That was I was into, and then I lost a lot of time because of work. But no, I've done a lot of stuff with rhythm games. I really like working with that because it's fun. It's also just fun to do because it's so heavily driven around math that, I don't know, I'm entertained by it. Because once you get it all working, once it's all just set up just right, you got all of the factors going together. It feels great. It feels so amazing. When you actually get it all working the right way, it's like someone even just trying to make like a music box or something. And when you get it all working, it's so nice to have it then. It's so exciting to finally have that end result that you get to go, yes, it all worked out. perfectly. It all worked out great. It's synced up and everything. That's great. It's always really fun to work on. No, work is great at killing everything. It's why even Bippy is such a struggle, because once you're an adult and once you're now attached to you, better keep up. Makes things a lot harder. It's why when I was in high school, I kind of knew that already, and I was trying to just make things as much as I could. I tried to take advantage of it. I think I told this story. My senior year in high school, I actually structured my high school experience very deliberately, that I took all my required courses my first 3 years. So senior year, I actually had like 6 or 7 free periods. I only had a couple of courses I took, and then almost everything else was just a free period. So I was out there, I was going to be constantly struggling to like make money and get by, and I wouldn't have as much time for any of that anymore. If you're in a position that you don't have to worry about a lot of this stuff quite yet, you're living underneath somebody, maybe your parents are helping you out at the moment, do take advantage of that. You're not going to have that forever, and that is a really good window then for you to start like practicing things and getting good at things, or trying to work on a project even. Because once you have to start balancing in like actual life on top of that, it's a nightmare, and everything is slowed down significantly. Work that you could have done now is going to have to take you like 7 years, because oops, you have to keep taking jobs over and over again, and oops, you can't even get by, and oops, you can't afford, oh, you don't even have benefits, whoops, haha, now you can't afford health insurance, whoops. There are so many factors that can get in the way. It can be so difficult for so many people. It's why indie game developers need the support that they need whenever you guys see them like posting new stuff out there. Because people get confused why they need money for projects, but that's partially why. They need to even just be able to survive. After what's just happened the past few years too, inflation and everything too, it's becoming a nightmare for independents. That's why I was saying at the beginning of the stream, are slowing a bit when it comes to that. It's really important for people to keep making things. Oh, absolutely. Save money. Save money. Because you want to have savings. I was making money through like Second Life in a few places when I was just coming out of high school. Away almost instantly. Very quickly. And it wasn't even a lot. I think I had about $3,000 saved up. And I was like, yeah, that's a good start, I think. No, nope. That went away in like a month or two after I was finally like out there actually doing things. That went away very quick. That's why building up savings is important too. As soon as you are out there on your own, life is going to go, okay, fuck you. And it's going to try its hardest to sap everything away from you. Anymore. It's very, very, very hard to keep up with this stuff once you finally hit that point. Once you're out there, once you're paying taxes, once you're an adult and you're taking care of yourself, things get a lot harder and time becomes so much more valuable whenever you can actually find it. Take advantage of free time if you do have it. $10K probably is not enough. $10K you're going to lose pretty quickly too. Which, that too. Part of the reason I was even thinking that to myself at the time, I was like, 3,000's enough, right? That's enough in savings, right? I was partially thinking that because I remember what it was also like being surrounded by so many people who were young and also just not experienced with this stuff yet. I still remember early days of Kickstarter and like Patreon too, of people being like, oh man, why do these guys need like $100,000 budget for a game. Could you make it with just like 100? You know they have to pay rent, right? Like, they at least need to be funded enough that they can dedicate time to this, right? And I remember hearing a lot of discussion about that. I remember being around a lot of people where it was like, what, $500 means you're rich! That means you could, like, afford a house. I'm not kidding when I say that. I knew people who thought that $500 would buy you a house. I knew people like that when I was, like, 18. I knew at least that wasn't correct. But you would feel the pressure of that kind of thing, too. You would be surrounded by that enough that you're like, am I wrong, then? I'm hearing so many people say that this is apparently so much money. Don't be pulled in by people saying that kind of thing. It's like, what? $1? That means you're like a millionaire. You're set for life. You don't need anything else but that. When people say that kind of thing, that's just purely a shutdown. Don't listen to that. No, you need to be able to actually have like some savings for yourself when you're gonna be heading into things too. $20,000, even that could probably go by quick, especially like I said, inflation and everything right now. That probably would go by really quick. I don't think you're gonna hold out too long even on that. You want to build up savings if you can prior to like really getting out. Preemptive, and I still wasn't even ready for a lot of it. Try to be there for yourself. Try to be ready if you can be, because things do get scary once that point comes in. Once you're there, once you're out there, once you're an adult, things change. And what suddenly felt like everything is infinite free time is now everything is a scramble to just stay afloat. Car like 100 years ago. I mean, it's the jokes that people always made. It's why you would see that a lot in like cartoons and everything, that you would have an old lady give someone a nickel and tell you like, that could buy you 3 boats back in my day. But obviously that's not where things are at. I think it's why people are also like that too. It's why people are so misled by what the value of money is, because things fluctuate so wildly. And there was a really comfortable period in the 90s. That was a rare moment where there was actually a surplus for a while. If people were wondering why... there were still tons of problems, obviously, but like financially, things weren't as scary as they are right now. Things are terrifying right now. So, yeah, if you're in a position that you're not worrying about a lot of this yet, try to at least plan ahead. Try to be ready. You don't want to end up being in like a horrible position where, you know, you're just completely screwed because you weren't even planned out. You weren't even able to get a little bit of savings ready before you headed out into the world. But, you know, easier said than done on that too, building savings. I mean, that too. Someone just said, just don't get sick if you live in the USA. Yep. If you guys are... Some of the first issues we were even faced with when we were back in LA, we're still kind of in a process of trying to recover from. You're good until you get sick. Then everyone tells you, oh well, may as well die. No, obviously that should not be happening, and things should not be that ridiculous. People have been turning to at least just being able to be there for each other, people trying to fund each other. It's why you see a lot of that too, but it shouldn't have even had to turn to that. It is really unfortunate that that is one of the biggest things that can guarantee that your life is going to be fucked over. You have health problems. Being told you're just not going to get a chance here. You might get a good job that could at least cover you. You might be able to get something that could like provide insurance or something, but oh my god, especially if you're doing independent work. Are you independent? You're really fucked then. Because they already hit you harder with taxes anyways for being independent, and you don't have those benefits, so you get to be fucked even harder. It's all of this twisting of your arm to tell you, stop making things, stop doing this, we don't want you to do this. And it's unfortunate, it does stink. That's why once again I said, try to take advantage of that time when you do it. Completely merciless once you're out there. And you're going to think, too, like, no, this was all established for good reason. It was here to help. No, in a lot of cases, it wasn't. These things also didn't go through by accident in a lot of cases. People like to treat these things like, well, it's been established for a while, though. At least, I mean, ever since I could remember. I mean, I'm only so old now. It means this was all done with good reason. It was all planned out. It was all really well thought out. No, I think you've probably been watching how things are going, too. Not necessarily. No, things are terrifying. Things are frightening once you get out there. Try to need to really be able to be there for yourself. Anyways, that was the last discussion I wanted to have, because I think that is who at least know to be like 18 or older here. If you're younger, I don't know how I feel about that necessarily, but the thing I can at least say is, hey, there's something for you then. Be prepared. Do be ready for when you are an adult. Try to get ready for that. Have some savings ready if you can. If you're hoping to make things when, like, independently when you're older, it's going to be really tough to do that. Insanely tough to do that. It is going to be a constant uphill battle for you, because very deliberately it's going to be structured to be an uphill battle. It's tough. If you're wondering why so many people struggle to even keep many projects have to fall apart because people just couldn't even maintain themselves anymore. Their lives were in shambles, they couldn't afford even, taking care of themselves, and they had to prioritize themselves. Something neat has to be pushed aside now because of how things are. It really, really sucks for that, and it's important for people to, one, be there for each other, obviously, but two, also for you to be there for you. Try to be ready for these things. Try to get ready. It's unfortunate that it's like this. It really sucks. And saying something like this too, it's like a parent like talking down to you, like, don't have dreams, don't be excited. It's a shitty, shitty thing to hear. That it doesn't have to be like this, but it's rough. You want to be ready. You really do. You don't want to underestimate it. Frosty, I would be too. I would be extremely worried about that as well. I can understand a lack of motivation, especially if, you already have stress in your own life or something. That's why I was saying earlier, if people struggle with motivation, the thing that I at least do, and this is not going to work for, I would imagine, most people anyways, but I try to just remind myself of the things that I care most about. If there's, like, something that made you really want to get into games, but you can't really find the motivation to practice coding, Go back and play the games that you're excited for again. Try to remember the things why you want to do it. Like, remember everything that you care about. What made you even compelled to start doing this to begin with? And at least that might be able to jumpstart that got you wanting to care about this. At least with like coding stuff, I also said that too. If you're new to coding and you're trying to figure out like a good starting point to just practice and figure things out, look up a game that you like a lot. Look up a game you're really familiar with, you like a lot, and see how accurately you can start recreating things from it. Probably don't go big. Don't go with like Grand Theft Auto or something. If you are like, I want to recreate this entire town and I want all the NPC interactions and everything, don't go that big. You probably replicate like older Grand Theft Auto, maybe like the 2D ones. You could potentially do like one of the later ones if you're just going to be sticking to like that wouldn't be like ridiculous to start on. It could be something just as simple as like Mario Brothers. It could be, you know, whatever. But that's also a good way to start getting into coding. Try to see if you can reverse engineer some games you like a lot. Games that aren't too complex, ones that you know could also be feasible to do. Thank you, Granite Overworld, for $2.50. Hey. Style strategy guide written in an unknown language that you have to decipher to progress. Very fun idea. That sounds pretty fun. No, I haven't heard about it. Maybe I have actually. I've seen a few Zelda-ish games recently that I kind of forgot the name of a lot of them. That sounds interesting, though. I guess I'll look that up. The Game Center CX game actually did something similar to that. They have a few fake games in there. I shouldn't call them fake. You can play them. But they have manuals and guides and everything, all this stuff to go alongside it. So you can get like an episode of it, which is really cool. I like that kind of thing. You play as a fox. Is that the one that's just in the like Game Boy monochrome like green? Because I've been seeing some development videos of a Zelda-style game that looks like that, and that one has really nice animations. It's looking pretty good. But maybe that's a different one. I've heard of this one then. I guess the name doesn't necessarily help too much though. Some of these games I do have a little bit of difficulty with. Like I know there's like 5 Paper Mario tributes being made right now, and I kind of forgot the name of each of them. Because a lot of them want to even have names that are close to Paper Mario to make it clear it's trying to be Paper Mario. When on my own end, I'm kind of like, you should also try to lean in a bit of your own personality too. You don't have to call it Tunic just because Zelda. But it can make it hard sometimes, though. I have had some stuff bleed together a bit because people all want to call reference to the same game that they're all inspired by. And it's like, oh, now it's a little bit harder to like differentiate you guys. I wouldn't say Blue Omen is really Paper Mario. It's more like Mario and Luigi. Although, I don't know, I haven't even really kept up with it, to be honest. I'm not really sure where it's in terms of, like, battle system and everything. Because it was kind of Mario and Luigi when it first started. I wonder where it's at now. But that's at least with Blue Omen, that's a very easy one then, because it's like, oh yeah, Blue Omen has kind of its own art style and everything too. It's got its own name and everything. At least that's one that I can easily remember. A name like Tunic, I would kind of like have a harder time remembering it. It's like if you made a Metroid tribute game and you just called it Morph. I get it, like the Morph Ball, but But I'm not saying that as, like, a bad thing, either. I'm not trying to say that as, like, how dare they call it Tunic? I'm just saying it because it's like, I might have seen it, but that's probably a factor as to why I don't remember now. Someone said Yacht Club is doing it. Is it Yacht Club? Because, yeah, that would give me even more confidence within it. Mina is looking great. I am really excited for Mina. Bug Fables is one of the ones that I haven't tried just because everything I've seen of it. I know it's trying to be Paper Mario, it wants to be a tribute to it, but the actual stuff that they're doing on their own just isn't gripping me. I didn't really get pulled in by their designs or like art style necessarily. I'm glad that people want to do Paper Mario styled games, but I talked about it on a previous stream. Part of what made those games to me too was sort of everything going together. It wasn't just because it was, you know, an RPG with paper cutout people. And it felt like they tied themes together pretty well, and it felt very Mario as a game. There are some games that do feel like they're at least trying to keep a game genre alive or a style of game alive. That's why I mentioned like Stardew Valley is a good go-to example. That game exists because they were disappointed in what happened with Harvest Moon as a series, and they wanted to make a better Harvest Moon. And they succeeded, because people don't really talk about Harvest Moon right now. But they sure talk about Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley did a lot. It's a cool game. It worked out pretty well for them. You can do that well. But there are situations who want more of that style of game, but that would be the thing that would probably pull people in, because Bug Fables, I'm not sure people would play it if they're not familiar with Paper Mario. That would be the reason you would play it. That's why I haven't exactly picked it up yet, but maybe I'll try it at some point. Maybe there's something in there that I haven't quite like seen yet that's actually gonna like grip me a bit more. Tunic is an easy to remember name for those who aren't super invested in indie games in general. I mean, I don't agree with you, and you're speaking for your own perspective, so I guess we can agree to disagree here, but no, to me personally, even if I didn't care much about indie games, if someone just told me it was a game called Tunic, there's a lot of games that are really short one-word titles that kind of blend together for me because of that. It happens with movies, too. Everyone really likes having one-word names that are just basic words. It's like if you called it Hero's Quest or something because you're trying to reference the fact that there's that in Zelda or stuff like that. I get why you're naming it that, I understand, but it would blend a little too close together for me that I would need to see the game. The name is not the thing I'm necessarily going to remember. And complex names don't necessarily stick either, you are right on that. Rocket League caught on because it was originally a game that I can't even remember the name of it. It was like Super Magnetic Powered Card something. quirky or goofy or something. It actually had a little bit more to offer in than Rocket League in some ways too, as a game. But Rocket League made more sense. It was just straightforward. That's why Tunic, it's not quite straightforward as a name even for what it is. It doesn't really tell you a lot about it outside of Zelda. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk was one that was hard for me to memorize too, because Jet Set Radio, hey, that name's straightforward. That makes enough sense, and it's what the game is. That's very straightforward as a name. Naming a game is important. It is actually really tricky to do for the future. We still don't even have a name for it because it's a thing of like, this needs to be named just right. Because if you name something very specific, it means that if people search it, they're only going to find your game then because you gave it a very, specific name. It's not a word that exists, so obviously your game is going to come up. Stuff like that can play out. For example, Pokemon. Well, it's not a word that people say, so people are going to be looking for Pokemon. They know what Pokemon is, and Pokemon will pop up. Some sets of words just describe the game really well, so as soon as you hear it, you go, oh yeah, I know what that game is, and it kind of just goes hand in hand. You might have, like, a clever title, stand out too much, doesn't make the game pop too much, it might not do favors for it. That's why I was saying Tunic, it kind of blends in a bit, because I've seen a lot of Zelda projects, so for me personally, hearing Tunic as a name, yeah, it doesn't jump out at me. I could probably easily get confused with a bunch of other projects because of that, because I've heard of games with similar sounding names or single word names that are Zelda projects. I've seen a few of them, so yeah. Tunic is a little bit weird of a name. I understand, like I said, it's a reference to Zelda, but it doesn't necessarily describe what it also is focused around. The strategy guide thing that you said, I'm not getting that. Maybe I would. I have to see the art style. I don't know about this game, to be fair. Well, that's why I also partially was confused if I had even seen it before or not. The name didn't really stand out to me. It'd more so be I'd have to see footage of it, and I'd probably remember it for how it looked and for what it was, just not really for that name. I'm not going to remember it. I mean, it's not about short names. Tried to reference Zelda in their name, so that's why Tunic doesn't stand out to me. I remember there were a lot of MOBAs too that were trying to do shorthand names, and that's why, like, oh man, what is it, like Smite? There were a bunch of other ones that I kept getting them mixed up because I was like, oh no, these don't say enough about the game. League of Legends, and then we had Heroes of New Earth, and we had like all these other ones, and it's like, oh no. What differentiates them? Well, I'll just look at gameplay and I'll be able to tell them apart. Heroes of New Earth is interesting to me because it's trying to be like a more intense form of Dota in some ways. I wasn't that into it overall, but it was interesting to me at least. Dota was obviously the original mod, and Dota 2 is through Valve and everything because the messy history there, the fact that Blizzard was really pissed off and then started making a rule now that if you make mods in their games, they own the rights to it because they didn't want that to ever happen to them again. I know all that now, because I followed all of it, and I looked into all of it, I read into all of it, and I played in all of it. But that's why if you're initially getting in, I remember having a lot of friends like that too, that it was a thing of, oh man, League of Legends, Heroes of New Earth. If you were just leaving it at that and you presented it to somebody, if you presented it specifically to my own end, because I've seen so many Zelda fan projects, yeah, I'd be a little bit confused. Maybe if you've never seen a Zelda fan project before, maybe you wouldn't get as confused by that. But to me, it would be very confusing. I would be a little bit like thrown off. I would be like, maybe I've seen it. I don't know. I need to hear more. The name doesn't do it for me. I need to hear a little more. A title can describe a game a bit more, or even give it its own personality. And once again, when it's called Tunic, its personality is that it's Zelda. I remember those games, though, that somebody just said. You played Rivals of Aether or Slap City. If this is really that confusing, if those are the comparisons we're making now, it's like, I guess maybe this is too baffling to people. Because it's like, no, those names are very different from one another. Super Smash Bros., Slap City, Rivals of Aether, they're very different titles, and they all kind of lend their own sense of personality, too. Slap City is a lot goofier sounding as a name than something like Super Smash Bros. That Super Smash Bros. Sounds very Nintendo because it has brothers at the end of it, has Super at the beginning of it. It has it suits the game because the game itself is very wacky. Rivals of Aether is a little rougher as a title. I don't necessarily think it's one of the best names they could have gone with, but I at least know it because, yeah, it's a different enough name. I do kind of attribute that name to the characters and the style they went with. My problem with Rivals is just that the characters don't stand out to me enough. Some are fun. I like a couple of the characters in there. I think they look a lot better in the new one that they're doing. They look really nice in the new one. They're finally making those designs stand out a lot. Were becoming more memorable, though. The frog guy was a lot easier to remember. The Falco-like character is one that I can easily remember just because he's the Falco of the game. But yeah, like, Rival sticks with me, too. I can kind of remember those names. Brawlhalla, ones like that. That's when it starts getting into a territory of you're just trying to be Smash Brothers and you're working it into your name so directly that you're not giving yourself any sense of personality. So you're making it, like, harder for people now because you're hoping, you know this game, so that's why you'll play this game. But if people are trying to look up your game, that might make things... Which one? It can make things a little complicated if you do that. Disco Elysium, I at least remember the name. I know which game that is. Cool game, too. I like the style of it a lot. Yeah, I remember it. It is a weird name, but I guess that's why I remember it. It's a weird name. And it's not a complex enough name. A unique name. It means that if you search for it, it's going to come up every time, and once you get used to it, at least, yeah, it sticks with you. You know what it is now. But it was confusing at first. It was a little bit jarring, and I did have, like, a struggle with it for, like, a week that I kept calling it the wrong thing. That was, like, Cyberpunk? No, Cyberfunk. It's supposed to match up with the syllables of Jet Set Radio, but like I said, Jet Set Radio is straightforward enough. It describes the game. Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, I guess it does describe it. It's the sensibilities and the style and everything, but I'll never forget Katamari Damacy. It's true. I mean, that's why this is a discussion. It's completely subjective with all this anyways. It depends on who you are and, like, how you're going to attribute things to memory. But on my own end, personally, if someone's doing, like, a tribute project, I would at least like if they still acknowledge their own sense of personality too, because that's the way I can easily remember them. Because I can go, oh yeah, I know it plays like this and it's inspired by this. A Star Fox-like game, and you just call it like Starbird. Okay. That's a name. I guess I'll try to remember that one, but let's say there were 100 other Star Fox projects. There aren't. Star Fox probably not the best example here because there aren't that many Star Fox. There are some. There are some Star Fox like fan projects or inspired ones, and most of them do have their own unique names and like art styles and everything, so they do stand out to me. But yeah, if there was like Starbird and the other ones, and that's why, like I said, Tunic doesn't necessarily tell me anything about the game. It just says to me Zelda, and there's a lot of Zelda games out there. So that's why I was confused. Long discussion, I know, but I guess I wanted to explain myself a bit better on that one, why it was confusing to me as a name, why I was like, have I seen that game before? I'm not sure if I have now, because I've seen a lot of Zelda likes, and a name like that feels very, like, standard for what they would call a project like that. I'm glad everybody's bringing it up in the chat, because yeah, it was cool. I'm glad there is a game like that. I'm glad people wanted to make some Star Fox-like games. Risk of Rain's a cool name. Risk of Rain's a cool game. I like the art style in 2. I haven't played it yet. I played the first one. Running a Kickstarter project and saying like, oh yeah, I was inspired by games like The Legend of Zelda growing up, so we're gonna make a Legend of Zelda. Just a lot of emphasis on the Zelda over and over again. It's why I was saying, like, a name can do a lot for a game. It gives it a sense of identity, and if you're not going to take advantage of it for that, you're hoping to like get familiarity out of it. That is why it might blend together with other things then. You'll get the familiarity, someone will understand the reference and go, oh, I get it, it's called Tunic because Zelda. That makes enough sense. The name is not going to be the reason you would necessarily remember it, it seems like. It'd be what the actual game is, and the game sounds neat. It sounds like a cool idea. I guess that's just why, like I said, I wasn't sure which one it was, or if I had seen it before, and it just slipped by me because of that. Yeah, there's a good example right there. Someone just said, Sea of Thieves is a much better name than Athena. I mean, yeah, Sea of Thieves. No. I don't get it. What are we talking about? Did you eat the mic? No, the mic's probably just fucking up again. I can't do anything about that. But I did continue to happen. I forget which one it is. It's one of the two. We can test it, though. So we can try that out if you guys want to see. But yeah, this mic has been acting up for a while now. This is the old one that we had from way back. We're never going to be able to afford a secondary microphone here. It's just not going to happen. It's not what we're prioritizing anyways. But this is the mic that we got way back in 2016. And this is the one that had ceiling fan drop on it and everything. It's been through a lot. I'm sorry, Werma. That would have actually been a good idea. I don't know anything about Deep Rock Galactic. I remember everyone was talking about it. It was just kind of working and that's it. So yeah, I didn't really pay much attention to it. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I remembered having somebody who I don't really hear from often anyways bring it up to me, and they said not to think anything of it, that it was just people were playing it because it was currently relevant, but that was someone else's like stance on it. Once again, I don't even know what it is. I never looked into it. Someone has said it has a season pass. Okay. I don't know what it is, once again. I don't know what it is as a game. Although typically games that have season passes probably aren't the kinds of games I'm usually... Mystery box, you don't know what you're gonna get. But if you spend the money ahead of time, you won't pay as much as you will later. Surprise! It was a box filled of things you didn't even want to begin with. Whoops. Because I remember the Smash DLC pass had that with a few people, that there were people by the end of it saying like, I liked maybe one or two of these characters, but I wasn't satisfied with the overall purchase. Problem is, with something like a fighting game, you kind of need to have characters just so you can practice against them and learn matchups. Yeah, I don't know what Deep Rock Galactic is. Like I said, I've only heard like one thing about it, and it was from someone that I don't tend to hear from that often anyways. So I'm not too sure. I never looked into it. people are already jumping in to defend a season pass. It's like, okay, guys, it's okay. It's okay. I don't know anything about this game. It's okay. I'm sorry if you guys purchase season passes. It's okay. That said, guys, I have a mystery box of my own. Ooh, we have a season pass for stream. If anyone wants to purchase it, no, I'm not gonna go any further with that. But no, season passes inherently can be pretty goofy as a concept. They can be done well, obviously, but usually it's a lot of people trying to just play off of that. You're kind of gambling a bit with it. People are saying even look like their designs anymore. Someone would wear an outfit that changed their color scheme completely, and you go, wait, who is that I'm fighting against now? They had a really bad problem with some wards that you could buy, that the cosmetics for them would change the hitboxes, so some wards had broken hitboxes, making them better than standard wards because you couldn't target them. They had so many issues when it came to their cosmetics. So that's why when people say things even like that it's like, it's just cosmetics. Even that can vary sometimes. It can still have its fair share of problems, even if it's just prioritizing cosmetics. Thing is, I don't know what that game is. That's why me saying the season pass thing, and a lot of people are already like, no, it's cool. It's like, well, okay, Jesus, all right. I'll take your word, everybody here who really likes Deep Rock Galactic. Once again, I don't know what it is. I literally don't know what it is. Maybe I'll look into it at some point. More unreadable. It can obscure visual cues that would have been more obvious if it weren't for those cosmetics. They can absolutely get in the way, and most games I play, they tend to. Or games even have to awkwardly design themselves around it. Overwatch, it frustrated me that because they wanted to push so hard for their cosmetics to make money off of all that, when you're aiming at somebody, not only does it have to make a gigantic, like, obvious thing around them to let you know you're about to be shooting at them. So yeah, trick shots aren't really much of a thing in that. It's not that hard to aim at people. They make it really easy. They also tint them red. Aiming at somebody because they're prioritizing cosmetics first, which I don't know how I feel about that. That can happen to games too, that they have to really think around cosmetics. When I was working at a company, that was one of the first things that even happened. They wanted to prioritize DLC day one. They were asking us about all of it because they're saying that was what was going to give the game longevity, and that we had to have a plan for DLC and passes and everything by like the end of the first month. And it's like, what on earth? We didn't even start yet, and that's the first thing you're thinking about? But it does happen with some games. But once again, like, I'm sorry if, like, Deep Rock Galactic is good here, guys. Like I said, I don't know anything about it. I don't really like season passes. That was just an unrelated discussion. Once again, that's why I have to say I don't know anything about Deep Rock Galactic. That's all I heard was from my one friend who made a very brief mention of it. I know people were playing it. That's kind of it, though. I don't know what it's about. I don't know what you do in it. No, I can say very directly, I'm pretty sure Overwatch did do that because of the cosmetics. Yes, it can also just be done for stylistic effect, sure, but in Overwatch's case, they absolutely had to do it because of how skins work and because of how cosmetics in that game work. They had to do a lot visually to make it very, very clear that you were firing at an enemy, because that was a big priority for the game at launch, was the cosmetic system in it. They would have tried to control that a bit more and probably I kind of think they would avoid that. I can understand maybe in other cases too, like single-player games or something, doing it for like stylistic effect, but yeah, in a game like that, I feel like that was probably the only reason they really had to do it. They muddied the visuals too much on characters because of cosmetics, and they knew that, so you gotta give some kind of visual cue to let you know that you're aiming at somebody and that you're properly aligned. And that you know that they're on the other team, too. And they make it really obvious. It's a very, very, very blatant tell. They make it as visible and clear as possible to you. Probably was part They didn't want to have a competitive scene. They did want to do that with it. It is weird to do that to a game that's also supposed to be competitive. But yeah, characters in that have wildly inconsistent color schemes alongside what you could do with cosmetics, giving you alternate color schemes and everything. You kind of had to do that. You needed to indicate very clearly this person is on other team. Otherwise, it's like, oh, what? They're like white and purple or something? Are they on my side? Oh, God. What's going on? Wait, who are they even? If person goes red... It didn't help that some of the silhouettes for characters also didn't pop out much with that game. Somebody made a comparison image of it when it first launched, but most of the female cast in Overwatch actually have really, really similar silhouettes. TF2, when they were designing it, silhouettes were a priority because they wanted to make sure that when you glance the screen, you easily can read who you're shooting at. And Overwatch kind of muddies that a bit because some designs do blend together and some body shapes for characters look similar. There are really weird looking characters in it for sure, but there's also a lot of characters that do have just very going to have to be a part of that, because if everyone's going to be all sorts of different colors and everyone's going to be dressing up and everything, you kind of need to make an obvious tell as to what team somebody's on. If you're looking at them long enough to start taking like notice of their full walk cycle animation, you're probably already dead in some cases. It is a shooter. You want to make short work of people. You want to be quick. You shouldn't have to wait for animations to play for you to finally go, oh, okay, now I know who you are. It really should be designed around first glance. You can kind of pick up on that. The thing is, that sort of went out the window anyways as a design thing, because when shooters were changing direction, people were talking about how arena shooters got phased out for a while. Things kind of went more around like hide-and-go-seek shooters, With more advanced lighting engines and trying to have dynamic shadows being cast on everything, there's a lot of stuff that can easily drown out visuals now and make things harder to see than they should probably be in some cases. And that's why readability can be hurt so easily in a game like this now, because some of these factors aren't even things that people had considered for a while, nor do they even have to. It is an easy mistake to make with that kind of thing too, designs that aren't necessarily readable at first. Thank you. Sorry, wait. There we go. Thank you, Clubbington, for $10. You can appreciate something for existing while admitting it's not for you. It's so goofy to gatekeep something that's so subjective. Yeah, I mean, that's what we were discussing earlier, that you're allowed to just like the things you like, even if people tell you not to like them. You can still like them. Ways it's going to be based on their own personal experience. It's important to understand your own self, though. I think that's what matters the most. You should understand the things that you enjoy and why you enjoy them. You should try to have a good understanding of everything on your own end there. I know people are very hesitant about that kind of thing. They're very nervous to have discussions about that kind of thing. Thank you, Wigs. Oh, hey! Thank you for $10. Hey, hope you're doing better today. Good to hear your voice. I'm doing a little bit better. I'm still a little bit dizzy. But I'm doing better. A doctor or anything, but we did try doing those exercises that people were recommending, saying that it was just vertigo, and it did not help at all. In fact, that's why I was in the bathroom, like, sick to my stomach for hours on end. I tried doing the exercise, and my head was spinning for, like, it felt like a half hour straight. I was dizzy just continuously. It was getting faster and faster. I had to close my eyes at points because things were spinning so much. It was just miserable at the start of this week. It took about like 3 or 4 days for it to finally start really going away, and now You didn't complete the exercise. Julian said you tilted it once. Well, that's nice that he said that. I tried it again one of the other days, so I don't know if what he was telling you stories about then. No, I tried it 3 different times. The last time I was able to do it. The first time I tried to do it, and as soon as I was starting it, that's when my head was spinning for about a half hour. Because specifically, the required step is supposed just, you know, I gave up on it. No, it's that I tried to do it, and it made it so much worse as I was trying to do it, that it wasn't even going to stop. To fully do it, you need to also have the dizziness kind of pass as you're doing it, and it wasn't passing, it was only getting worse. It's also a little bit hard to keep holding your head on your side when you're spinning out of control and falling over. So, no, it wasn't a matter of giving up on the exercise, it was literally not possible to even do the exercise. stream, I was just laying down for all of it, since I was still spinning a lot. But no, that's what happened with the exercise. I tried to do it, and like I said, part of the exercise is that you're supposed to hold for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds or something until you're not really dizzy anymore. And it was just getting worse and worse and worse the longer I held it. And I tried to hold it for a while, and it just got so bad that I had to run into the bathroom. Not really even run, just kind of awkwardly collapse into the bathroom and just sit on the floor for a while. In fact, I remember the end of that night, I kind of just had to lay down. I don't know if it was just standard vertigo or if I was also getting sick or something at the time too. I was sweating profusely for like a few days on end. I felt just kind of sick anyways. I had a huge headache on top of all of it. It was a lot of things all together at once that was just making it really miserable. Are you still afraid to talk about your dizziness because people would be aggressive if you mentioned your health again? Everybody, you know that not everyone's going to do this, but it's like, I know that a lot of people are going to do it though, and that's very frequent, and it's a pretty normal thing. When you have 5 to 6 years of this as an experience, it's kind of hard to shake that off. If it's cemented itself for more than half of a decade, it's probably guaranteed that for a full decade it's sure to continue. Because yeah, mentioning health problems ever was a problem. And Julia and I have even talked about this kind of thing too, because it's like, yeah, it seemed like just ever saying anything about that. It's a guarantee for people to on that, but it also is what then cements more and more problems, and it's why mentioning health problems, yeah, it was an issue. Mentioning health problems was kind of a guarantee that things were just going to get worse, so I eventually just stopped trying to mention health problems. I talked about this before. Last year, Julian on stream accidentally brought up the stuff with my ears, and very quickly there was a lot of, I thought you already had problems with your ears before. And it's like, yeah, because they didn't stop. I just didn't say anything about it because people didn't care the whole time. And if people are going to make it into an issue, I may as well just not say anything. It is kind of a guarantee that there's going to be issues. Because it's also the thing that people do in general. It's what I was talking about earlier with, like, how people can easily get upset about a thing just collectively in unison. Doesn't matter if it's, like, rooted within reality necessarily. As long as people are mad about it collectively for a while, that's just going to hold as whatever people go with. Doesn't have to be true. And then some time can pass and maybe it'll change around a bit. That's why I was saying, like, God Hand is a good example of that. We had people saying for like a solid decade it was a bad game, and then, not really a solid decade, I'd say like half decade, people knew pretty immediately it was a good game. It's just critics. A lot with people. And that's why mentioning health stuff, I feel like it even leads towards that. It makes people want to be like, what does that really mean, though? He mentioned he had ear problems back in 2016, and 2017, and 2018, and 2019, so, what does that really mean? It means I've had ear problems for a very long time, and that I usually wasn't going to get it looked at either, because I couldn't really afford it. It usually would just get us hurt if I made any mention of what was actually. Donations when I probably shouldn't. And have been doing it for like 6 years now. I mean, we had people insisting with that stuff too, even early on. Even when I was doing like the hardest refunds I could possibly do, we had people throwing skepticism with a lot of that, or acting like, I think you're refunding people for some other purpose. Perhaps it's some kind of elaborate loophole tax write-off situation. No, it's that parasocial stuff is uncomfortable and weird, and people feel like they need to donate money to have a you should be throwing your money around because they want to encourage it. That's why I usually turn off most of that stuff anyways. Hype Train I turned off after they introduced it. All that stuff's just weird and uncomfortable to me, and I don't feel like someone playing a video game on stream really warrants making money anyhow. No, it's been a thing for me since like the very beginning. But even that, pretty much anytime you make a decision and you're open about something, you can guarantee that people are going to be weird about it. Because people are used to not being open about things. So the more open you are, the more suspicious you look, just because people, I guess, are not familiar with that. Someone just saying the thing they're doing. To go through, I've mentioned it before, that it's like $10 or less I can probably deal with. But if people do repeated donations on streams, I'll give those back sometimes, if I at least catch them. I've been bad about that. That's what people used to do to try to trick me on it. They would donate repeatedly over the course of the stream and hope I wouldn't add all those numbers up and realize what happened. But I at least started paying more attention to that. But I'll also, like, try to ask people. I'll try to bring it up to them. I'll try to ensure, like, are they really, really sure they want to go through with that? And sometimes I'll just do it anyway. Need to be okay right now. Everyone should be also looking out for themselves.